Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 1 of our story. If you like this what if story and want to see part 2, let me know in the comments below. Before we start, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Also, check the description for more great content and my playlist. This story was posted by 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 on Wattpad. Now let's start. Third-person POV 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 was a good kid. At least he believed so most of his life, but it seems that God did not agree. He was finally 4 and could go to the doctor to find out his amazing quirk. He was in such a good mood and so was his mother. He wished his father would also be here to be as happy as him and his mother were, but sadly he had died before he was born. Mother cried every year on the day that he died. Izuku always wanted to be a hero with his best friend Kacchans, but it was today that he found out that he lacked the bare minimum to be one. He was quirkless. His mom cried so much. She just kept apologizing to the boy. The news crushed him for a bit as well, but the kid was resilient. He was not going to give up just yet. He would have to train, but with the help of his friends and family he was gonna manage. He could be a cop or a psychic, right? Apparently not. Once they got home his mother turned quiet. She brought out the steak knife and stared weirdly at him. She was scaring him, but mom wouldn't do anything, would she? With a crazed smile on her face, 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 crept toward her son. Several other kitchen appliances floating around her with her telekinesis. Her eyes bloodshot, the tears long dried. Around her a deadly aura. You piece of useless 𝐬𝐶𝐻𝐿. You were my ticket to finally pay that bastard back. Now that you can't be a hero, how will I make him suffer for leaving? You won't make enough money and be famous enough to remind him for what he lost. 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 was now screaming. What was she talking about? It didn't make sense. Who was he? Izuku's mind raced as he was backing up from his mom, who still had a lot of weapons around her and the evil aura. It took a few more steps before he hit the wall, and now he was really scared. He started hyperventilating and panicking. This is your fault. If you weren't so useless I wouldn't have to do this, but you made me. You and that bastard Hisashi both made me do this. Now pay. 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 said each word laced with venom. His father? What did he do? He was dead. And this was not his mother. This was just some nightmare. An illusion. Sadly he was wrong. His mother got close enough to reach the boy by his right hand with her free hand, and that was what she did. She grabbed the boy by the wrist and jammed the steak knife in his shoulder. The boy let out a horrible scream, only to have his mouth forcefully shut by his mother's hand. Izuku's eyes grew wider when he saw the large puddle of his blood on the floor. His right arm was limp, he saw black dots coming as he started to lose consciousness from all the pain. I don't want to die. These were the boy's last thoughts. Izuku woke up with a sharp pain in his right shoulder inside a confined space. He had thought that he was dead from all of the blood loss and darkness, but the afterlife couldn't be so painful. Izuku tried to break out of his prison when he actually felt something soft. This took him by surprise when he recognized the place he was in. The reason it was all dark was because he was in his own closet. The young child now started to butch his situation. His bleeding had stopped, but it still hurt as F. The closet was probably locked from the outside by his crazy mother that seemed to be out for blood. He had done something to drive her to violence, and it had something to do with his father and his quirklessness. It didn't make much sense, but that was the least of his issues. Currently he had only one thing to do: escape alive. Izuku tried to get into a almost sitting position and started to apply pressure to the door with his left foot and kicked with his right. He kept that up until the old lock gave in and broke, the door flying open, making a loud noise. Izuku fell out of the closet only to witness his mother walking in the room looking sad. She grabbed him by the wounded hand and a yelp escaped his mouth. She smacked him in the face, then whispered in his ear. Listen here, you useless brat. Count yourself lucky that you are even alive. I didn't want to deal with the hiding of a dead body, so now this household will run differently. You will be mute around me, and every noise you make will need punishing. When I do give you permission to talk, you call me miss or ma'am. You will obey each and every of my commands if you value your life. Remember, my telekinesis can let me hold and move small objects, so I can and will grab and squish your heart if you ever try something. And it obviously goes without saying that you are not permitted to talk about this to anyone. Izuku shook his hand frantically, scared out of his mind, trying to show that he understood his mother's orders. From that day time home was hell. Izuku was ordered to do all the chores home, go to school and act like all is fine and become his mother's 𝐬𝐬𝐴. He obeyed 𝗏𝐻𝐿's commands the best he could, but every time he slipped up new scars would appear on his body. His mother also got more aggressive over the years. She got drunk most evenings and give him a beating or cut him. It took a lot of energy to clean up the mess and his wounds, but if he wouldn't do it he'd get for it later. Sadly, home was not the only hell in Izuku's life. Third-person POV Izuku surely suffered at home, but it was not the only place of pain in his life. He had hoped that he would at least get support from his best friend Kacchans, but clearly there was no good left for him. Bakugo met Izu. His best friend asked him the question. "Hey Izu, how did your quirk diagnose go? Got a strong quirk so we can be NR1 heroes together?" Kacchans asked with such a happy voice that Izuku almost thought that not all was lost. With a little sniffle the boy answered, "Kacchans, I am quirkless." Now he had tears running down his face. There was a silence so deafening that Izuku started to worry. After a very long pause Kacchans started laughing, and by the time he was done Izuku was not sure what to expect. Then it came. Kacchans stopped laughing and looked at his best friend before talking. "Su, you are useless. You are a Deku." Tears went down Izuku's face trying to form a sentence. Kacchans but he was cut off. "Don't call me that, Deku. As a matter of fact, do not talk to me or anyone ever again. Spare the oxygen for us, the useful ones." Izuku did as ordered. Izuku POV Izuku always remembered that as the worst day of his life. It was the day all came crumbling down. He was beaten and bullied every day in school, and at home he became SLV as well as 𝗏𝐻𝐿's personal punching bag every time she was drunk. That was almost daily. Izuku was now 9 and he was cleaning his newest wounds when he saw something weird in the sink where his bloody bandages were soaking. Among the pieces of cloth were several little bloody bolts, nails, and metal shavings. It now makes sense why Kacchans' explosion on my back and shoulder felt more painful than usual. He made an explosion on my body while holding these pieces of metal and they got melted in my skin. Great, just great, now I have to pull them out before the wounds get infected. Today was just another horrible day, and Izuku did not want to imagine what his mother's drunk tantrum would do to his already sore wounds, but as long as he behaved he wouldn't get too hurt. He had learned that lesson the hard way. The one time he tried to escape his mother's wrath, she used her quirk's power to break his rib and pull it halfway out of his body, leaving it in the wound. Izuku had to put it back just so it would heal. Izuku had learned to stick himself and treat almost every kind of wound, so he was not worried for himself. After 3 hours of cleaning his wounds, making dinner and doing his homework, Izuku heard the door slam. Here we go again. Mom is drunk again. What a surprise. Better to get over it quickly. Izuku walked out of the room and into the living room. There his mother stood looking like a mess. She also looked mad. Must have been a bad day at work. Who am I kidding? She is drunk and mad every day. After the beating and another round of cleaning wounds, Izuku plopped into his bed. He wanted to scream, but then his mom would get mad after hearing his voice and he would get a second beating. In school he couldn't talk either because he got punished by Kacchans or got detention from the teachers, forcing him to be late home and gain another beating. Due to all of this, Izuku got really quiet. When he stopped talking he noticed a decrease in pain, so went sometimes for months not speaking. He even started learning sign language to avoid speaking as much as possible. The only thing that still brought him joy was music. Every night, before going to sleep, Izuku put on some black earphones and listened to music. It was the only thing keeping him sane. It was another day in this hell, and after getting called all kinds of names it was finally time for lunch. Izuku ate on the roof, but when he got back to the classroom he was greeted by Kacchans and his minions. In Kacchans' left hand was an appealing red flower known as a death lily, and the other was behind his back. With an exaggerated smile on his face, Kacchans gave him the flower and started talking. "Congratulations, Deku, on your 12th birthday. Hope you enjoy my surprise." Then he took his hand away from his back and revealed Izuku's quirk analysis notebook. Izuku knew what would happen, so he didn't even react except bow and take the flower only to put it in his hair. He knew the meaning of the flower obviously, but he didn't care. It was an appealing flower. Then he watched as Kacchans blew the notebook up that he worked so hard on. It was not the first time this had happened, so he didn't dare make a sound, only silent tears ran down his cheeks. Kacchans saw this and must have found it quite amusing because he and his lackeys started to laugh. The bully then went up to Izuku and started talking one more. If you are so desperate for a quirk, then why don't take a swan dive of a roof and hope to get one in your next life? Suicide baiting was nothing new and Izuku had heard all of it before. He had lost count how many times he had heard that he should kiss the barrel of a revolver, become a human swing, to take a swan dive or to become one with the rails via train. Without saying anything, he just sat back down on his chair and his bullies walked away. It was after school on the way home when Izuku found himself getting attacked by some kind of sludge monster under a bridge. He didn't even really register that he was suffocating until he heard a loud voice shout, "I am here. Here to kapor you pesky villain and save this boy." "All Might," Izuku called out, still drowning. "This is it. I can finally ask him if I can be a hero." All Might punched the villain so hard that it exploded. Then he talked while collecting him. "Hello young man, are you okay?" Izuku was freaking out a bit but answered, "Yes thank you." All Might was about to go but Izuku got the courage to ask his question. "Mr. All Might, I have a very important question. Can a quirkless kid like me be hero?" There was a dreadful silence before All Might started to laugh. "Ha ha ha ha, I know you would die day one just like 2 minutes ago. People like you should not be acting like they can achieve anything." With that, the number one hero jumped away from Izuku, leaving him in a state of shock. To say that he was crushed would be an understatement. A large part of him knew Kacchans was right from the beginning, but hearing his hero say that crushed him. Izuku was home, changing his bandages when his mom opened the apartment's door. "SHT, she is early and I haven't even started cleaning or dinner. Brat. Get out here right now before I tear you apart." Izuku knew her threats were never empty, so he ran into the room covering his wounds by putting on a hoodie. "Today I got fired for my excessive drinking," she said, more than mad. "Since I drink because of your existence, I expect you to pull your weight and drop out of school to work and pay for everything." This was the last string and Izuku snapped. For the first time in years he ushered a word to his mother. "Are you crazy? I am 12 and you chose to drink, I didn't force you. I am done." 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 went quiet with a bloodthirsty aura around her. Izuku felt like he was 4 again. He knew he had screwed up, but this was truly terrifying. Before the young boy could even mutter an apology, several clotheslines from the bathroom and both of the woman's hands were around his neck, choking him. He tried to claw at his mother's hands, but the grip got so strong that he started seeing black dots in his vision. "Never talk again. Is this how I die?" were the boy's last thoughts before blacking out. Izuku woke up in his bed. His neck felt so sore, like he was still being strangled. It was over. From now on his life would only be worse. He cried silently. He was not ready for such a horrible life, so he broke. His friends suicide baited him for the umpteenth time. His hero rejected his dreams and his mother would make him lose his whole future, not to mention that he was almost killed by her. Then Izuku got up from his bed. He was tired. Maybe Kacchans was right for once. His mother also wanted him dead but didn't want to deal with the cops for killing her own son. It was time he did them and the whole world a huge favor and rid it of one more useless Deku. Izuku put on his red sneakers, threw on a black hoodie, cargo breathes, and put music on. He couldn't be bothered to write a suicide note. Not like someone would read a Deku's note. Katsuki Bakugo POV. I woke up feeling great. I know that today will be another day of me being better than everyone. My lackeys always say how cool I am, so amazing, and soon I will be the #1 hero. I mean, there are only a few more months before we go to junior high and then UA. I wonder what I should do today at school, but first I have to get ready. I brush my teeth, get dressed, and go for breakfast. The old hag yells something like usual and I answer the same way. This is getting really annoying. Like, how can someone be so annoying all the time? My life is so hard. Finally I get out of this annoying situation and walk to school. I reach the last corner and when I turn I see a whole crowd. There are cops and a couple of heroes. Deku will geek out the minute he shows up, I think. I walk through the crowd of extras to see what the commotion is about. Then I see it. A bloody mess of spattered BLD, a corpse with a black hoodie. It is disgusting. I want to vomit but don't plan to make a scene. Can't show weakness. Whoever this loser was, he won't make me look like a beach. That wouldn't be hero-like. I was about to leave when I saw one of the dead kid's shoes. Red sneakers. The kind Deku wears. Now that's disturbing. The body has a sweater I have seen Deku wear, the same shoes, and now that I look closer, the BLD stained his face but it has freckles and kind of green hair. Now the gears seem to click in place. 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐴 Death Arms POV. I was about to go patrolling through the streets, currently putting on my suit when suddenly my comms went off. Apparently 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 found a suicide victim by a nearby school and he needed help getting civilians away for the cops to clear up the scene. I know how nasty those scenes could get, so I ran to help, but it seemed that I was a bit too late. Hundreds of people, mostly kids, were surrounding the perimeter. I jumped over the crowd and saw it. A horribly mangled body of a maybe 12-year-old. This is certainly the harder part of my job. I was briefed on the situation and helped with crowd control. The faces of kids and adults recognizing the body were disturbingly peaceful. Probably from shock. But they were not shocked. Those were content faces. They seemed happy. But why are a bunch of kids and adults happy to see a suicide? What the hell was this school? Bakuga POV school was cancelled and I felt like 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐴. I was sad. Was I sad? But I had told Deku to take a swan dive hundreds of times. I wanted this right. Did I regret this, or was I sad for myself? Was I sad that he listened, or did I fear that someone would tell the cops? Could I still be a hero if I pushed someone to suicide? My emotions were a blur, and so were the next few days. It has been a week after his death, and we have been invited to the funeral. The old hag also mentioned that Auntie Inko has not been acting the same. She is apparently drinking a lot, so we plan to visit her right after the funeral. I have been feeling heavy the whole time, and every time I hear his name I remember the mangled remains of his body. Today we are going to buy a suit for the funeral and I do not know what to think. Do I regret saying those things? I don't think so. But I just can't seem to get that nasty picture out of my head. It almost makes me vomit every time I think of it. God damn it. Why can't I just forget? I don't deserve this. Why must I suffer so? The funeral is in 2 days and we have to go buy some flowers. My parents suggested some death lilies and I had to excuse myself. I ran to the bathroom from the sudden urge to throw up. All I can think of are all the times he was gifted those flowers. Something is wrong with me. Inko POV. The 𝐵𝐵 is gone. I felt good, but there is this nagging feeling. I miss him. I miss the feeling of beating him. It felt like I was hurting the piece of man I once called my husband. Now that they both have left, I have been drowning myself in liquor. I don't have a lot of money, but I can sell all of that hero merchandise for a quick buck. I had planned to kill him sooner or later, but I wanted to have some more fun before finishing the job, so I was stalling. Now that he took his own life, I regretted not finishing the job that evening. That made me so sad I started crying. It worked in my favor, making me look like a grieving woman. One cop asked me to identify the body, and even though there wasn't much, it looked like him. The only really recognizable part was the upper part of his torso, and I saw the scar I left. I felt proud. Sadly, the cop also saw said scar. When he asked if I knew anything about accidents or suicidal tendencies, I told him that I didn't know he was suicidal and he might have tried hanging himself that night but failed and chose plan B. I totally played into the mourning mother act by leaning against the cop, crying and talking about how happy the brat acted. He bought it. 𝐶𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨 Naomasa POV. 𝐶𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨 just talked to a grieving mother. He had to ask her to identify her son's remains after he committed suicide. He would never have done this part of his job willingly, but he was the last in the office. He was there on scene, so he knew how gruesome it looked. If he could, he would have spared this poor mother the pain, but there was not much else to do. I had to ask her the standard questions about if he was showing suicidal tendencies before his death. Then I asked her about the neck scar the doctors pointed out should have killed him. The cried out what we all thought. A failed attempt. Then she leaned against me and wept, telling me how he was a happy kid. I didn't use my quirk on purpose, I swear on my badge and life. But the conditions were met and suddenly I knew that she was not telling the truth. Why would a mother lie about her son's mental state? I was now not sure what else she could have lied about, but I kept calm. I would have to look further into this. Maybe there was more to this woman than she let on. RD person POV. It was a small and quiet funeral. It was a closed casket one. Only Inko and the Katsukis arrived. Izuku Midoriya's grave was decorated by 12 red death lilies and left. Inko hoped to never have to see a single reminder of that piece of SHT again. Bakugo hoped that the dead boy would be reborn luckier. Mitsuki hoped for Izuku's peace in the afterlife. Masaru hoped for his son's best friend to be happy. Izuku POV. I have been falling for God knows how long. Time is weird here. Once I hit the floor, there was a split second of pain and then darkness and falling one more. It's just so dark. I want to scream, but for the first time no actual sound came out. I am literally trying to, but no sound comes out. It is a weird feeling. At the start the darkness was so hot that it felt cold. Then it burnt. Out of nowhere it turned ice cold. It felt like I went through all feelings. I just hope that this is not all death has to offer. If it is an endless void but I keep conscious, then I might just go insane. I think it has been days. Might be weeks or hours. Time is weird here. I have started hearing voices, but they are not mine. Only whispers and murmurs. It is like the kids at school talking behind my back, thinking, or at least acting like I can't hear them. But these voices are not mean. I can't tell what they are saying, but I know that they are not malicious. They remind me of curious kittens and puppies. It's been a while. Or not. Time is weird here. The voices are growing louder. I hear all kinds of noises. Most animal, some human-like. They ask questions, but no matter how much I try to speak, no sound comes out. I think I'm going crazy. Voices in my head could be hallucination from the BLD rushing to my head, but wait, if that were the case, that would imply that I am still alive and not slattered on the pavement. But I felt the impact. Whatever. The point is that I have started seeing little creatures of what seems to be condensed darkness. It is weird. But so is everything else here, like time. It was sudden. Or was it gradual? I do not know. Time is weird here. I saw one of those shadows. Yeah, I named my insanity endless free-fall hallucinations. Is that weird? The point is that I saw a big one. Like he is massive. The others also grew slightly, but this one was big from the start. He looks like a Fing dragon. I will be the first one to admit. I took my own life by choice. For reasons. But getting mauled by some concentrated darkness/shadow dragon that might be real or just me going crazy was not part of the afterlife package deal. At least as far as religions go, I don't think I have heard of people believing that after death there is bloody dragons made from the abyss itself. It reached my arm with its head. It started opening its mouth for the first time in what felt forever. I was scared. Suddenly I felt something other than falling and weird temperatures. I felt the contact of its head touching me. I was about to feel its teeth as well. Good news and bad news. Good news, I might not be going crazy and seeing things that were not there. Bad news, it meant the Fing dragon was not fake. Stop. I couldn't say a word, so I mentally yelled at the dragon and it actually stopped. It looked at me as kept falling down. The other shadows also stopped. Everything stopped. That gave me an idea. I mentally yelled once more, "Catch me." The dragon bolted so fast I did not even feel it gently adjust under me to catch me safely. I stopped falling. I woke up. I woke up on a roof. Not just any roof. The roof that I jumped off. The roof of Aldra High. I pat myself up and down, making sure that I am real. I have it all. The black hoodie, cargo breeds, red sneakers and black earphones, but no music is playing for some reason. I also have a black mask and gloves I don't remember putting on. Looking around I do see some more differences. The sneakers are a lot darker, the roof door is locked and the roof is wet. It didn't rain when I jumped. I put the hoodie and mask on as I leave the roof via fire escape. I don't want to fall in a place with weird time again. I check my phone but it's dead, so I run to the nearby train station. The clock tells me it is 3 m July, exactly 2 weeks after my birthday and the day I jumped. I am confused to say the least. I tried to leave when I suddenly felt a lot more lightheaded. Slowly walking out of the train station, I seemed to be drawn to the dark alleys. As soon as I was in the shadows, my head cleared and I felt much better. Maybe the abyss left some permanent nerve damage. I moved through the dark parts of the city till I reached a park with a pond. Considering my outfit changed, I fear that my body has too. I reach the water and look at the reflection, taking of my mask and hood. I have changed. My hair is now black, so are my eyes. I have lost my freckles and I have a nasty white scar around my neck like Mom's last present. Considering I still feel half dead and tired, I decided to crawl in a darker alley to sleep. I seem to like the darkness a lot more than I should, considering I was in darkness for apparently 2 weeks. It has been 4 days, and that I know for a fact because time here is not weird. It seems that I have a quirk that activated when I died. My reaction was very mixed since I never had a quirk before and it was a great experience, but then came the realization. Knowing that I wouldn't have received my quirk for God knows how long had I not been suicidal was horrific. And I know that near-death experiences don't count. That I know from experience thanks to my mother and Kacchans. Talking about them. Well, I don't think I want to see them. They are probably a lot happier, so it would be a shame to ruin this. Other things I learned are, direct light does me no good. After an hour or so I will start feeling lightheaded and disoriented. Any longer will hurt like sunburns on the exposed skin, though no visible irritation. The sun does the job twice as fast and painfully. I seem to have some degree of light tolerance. If the light is weak enough it won't do much, and clothes help a lot. All of my scars are still there, but new wounds only hurt in light and heal almost instantly in the dark. My scar on my neck has left me permanently mute. Good thing that I was basically mute already and learned sign language. I also gain more speed and recover stamina faster in the darkness. I have perfect night vision. I can see there better than in light, as a matter of fact. My body seems normal, if not a bit too pale, but when I want I can disappear only to reappear in anywhere dark enough. Limited by only light, I can basically teleport. I am more or less one with the shadows and the transition is almost natural. I don't seem to need to eat or sleep while in the dark, but once out I am back to almost human. I do lack a heartbeat, so undead. Some of the little voices of the abyss followed me and they look like little animals. I understand them and using my mind I can communicate. I think they see me like the leader as they follow all of my orders. The abyss is only my subconscious. I can access it when I sleep, but the first time I did I panicked so much I snapped right back out and hit my head against the wall I slept against. Lastly, I seem to have my own kingdom. That is all that the light doesn't touch is mine. I can make things pop up from nowhere and they can be used by me. I thought about weapons I would need and they just appeared. Black like some edgelord's personal collection, but seeing and my quirk literally made me emo. That is no big surprise. I want to use these powers helping others. Like all those years I tried to be a hero, cop or fireman. Considering I am legally dead I can't be a vigilante or criminal. Besides, if 𝐒𝐮𝐿 is the #1 hero then I do not want to be like him. I would much rather mess with heroes but still help people. So vigilantism it is. First order of business was to find a nice place to stay, and I found an abandoned school. Creepy enough for most people to avoid, and 2 for criminals to stay in, as they can easily be surrounded without knowing, and way too cold and dark for homeless people. That is no problem for me. Many of the little shadow animals followed me and live in the school with me. I feel like an emo Cinderella. My idea is to use these little guys that blend in with shadows as spies and scouts. They talk to me telepathically and they can teleport to the darkness, so they are quite versatile. I have no cash, food or blankets, but I don't need those right now. 𝐶𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 POV. It has been 1.5 weeks since I had that weird interaction with that woman 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. I still can't get the fact out of my mind that she lied about her son's mental condition. What else did she lie about that I don't know because of a lack of physical contact? The only other person that knows I used my quirk technically off the clock is my good friend Izuku. I told him of the interaction and he agreed that there is something more. I don't know why, but I have the urge to lead this investigation. Once I was done with all of the paperwork, I went to Izuku-𝐻𝐻's residence. I do not have a warrant due to a lack of probable cause, but if she lets me in then I can discover the truth. We have made contact so I can find the truth out. With me I have 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐴. We arrived at the apartment building and walked up the stairs. I reached the door and knock. Nothing. I knock again. Nothing. You think she's home, Naya? My partner asks me. Sigh, I don't know, but we can wait, there is no rush. I answer my friend's question. All of a sudden I hear a thump like someone falling down. A yelp follows quickly. Now I know that someone is in there. I knock one last time. The door is opened by a drunk Mrs. Midoriya. Good evening, Miss Midoriya. You probably remember me, but the main is Naomasa Tsukachi and this is my partner Sansa Tamakawa. I receive a nod from Sansa. It took a minute for her to have an answer, but alas she responds with a welcome and some mumbles before she lets us in. That was easy. Sorry, is this a bad time? I ask out of respect. No, is all she says. Truth. I look around and see dozens of liquor bottles, Schock, Wein and Jägermeister. A half-empty bottle of whiskey by the couch is visible. It is a sad sight to see. We all sit down and the questioning begins. I remind her of her rights and ask if she would rather do this in the station when sober. She seems to have sobered up mid-conversation and states that she knows all of this. Truth. I ask some standard questions before moving to the ones about her son. So, would you say your son did not show signs of depression before his untimely? No. Would you say he was bullied? I don't think so. Truth. Did your son ever mention any kind of issues he had? No. Would you say your son considered home as a safe space? I admit, that one was not professional, but I can't stand listening to this. Yes. Ma'am, I suggest you to tell the truth. I have a truth-telling quirk. Form there it is all a blur. The next thing me and Sansa saw was the change in her face to some mixture of anger and pure insanity. Following that, several bottles flew at us as a faint green light surrounded the woman. I dodged the first one by ducking and Sansa jumped to the side. The second bottle was broken and it grazed my arm as I jumped behind the sofa. Several more flew at us as the woman yelled. That bastard deserved it all. He just had to be useless. I only wish I had finished the job when strangling him. Me and Sansa coordinated and both pulled our tasers before standing up and aiming at her. Before I could fire, a Vine bottle connected with my shoulder, most likely dislocating or breaking it. Sansa got hit by a broken glass in the leg, but his taser connected, then did mine. I called for backup and from there I don't remember much. Just me putting cuffs on her, then ambulance and lights fading in and out. Finally darkness. Tsukachi POV. I woke up to bright lights, beeping and the smell of sterilizer. I'm in a hospital. Phew, I groan in pain. You can say that again, Naya. I hear someone reply. I look to my left and see my orange-furred friend sitting in his hospital bed with several IVs on his arm and a large patch on his leg. Probably where the glass bottle hit him. He also has a new scar under his shoulder. My own body is not much better. I remember getting hit by a blunt part of a bottle and my right shoulder was most likely broken, so I have a shoulder cast. A glass shard also nicked my other arm, leaving a not-so-nice-looking mark. Good thing that we got a healing quirk doctor. After a whole week I finally got back to work. I still have the cast and Kenji didn't want me going back, but I insisted. I need to know what really happened because everything feels off. They seem to have already interrogated the woman and she surprisingly confessed. She told them that she brutally beat her son every evening until she fell asleep or got bored. She forced him to do everything around the house, forbid him to speak. If he did not do what asked of him, he was properly punished. The young boy had to treat his own wounds. She cut him often and used her quirk to torture the boy. She was also an alcoholic. The evening before he took his own life, she almost strangled him to death, leaving the scar on his neck. She is a true monster. She also mumbled something about how the boy was too similar to him, that when he was diagnosed as quirkless she snapped. Yeah, she was doing all of that to the boy since he was 4. 8 years of abuse. And that raised a lot of questions. Did his teachers and friends not notice the symptoms? I will have to look into all of this further on a later date. Once my arm heals and I am done with all of the piled up paperwork. It will take a couple days. In the meantime, she was taken to court and the judge ruled her legally insane. She was sent to a mental hospital. Izuku POV. These last few days have been fun. Considering I am not that strong as of right now, I have not fought a single battle. Instead, I have sent my shadow friends to every corner in the city. The goal is to set up a clear information network. Most of them are mice, rats, cats and dogs. Others might see some starry animal while I have an extra pair of eyes. I use these to search for heroes during the night. They look realistic enough if not looking carefully can't be distinguished from normal animals. I ask the shadows to follow them and update my mental map of their patrol routes. If they are in a fight, I teleport myself to see it. If I want to be a vigilante, I have to learn as much as possible about my potential allies or enemies, depending on their vigilante policies. I also checked out all police stations, fire departments and hospitals. Plus, I can learn their moves and practice them in my free time. So far I know that Rock Lock, Amplifier, Fourth Kind and Eraserhead are available and safe to approach with minimal repercussions. These four were the night shift except Fourth. He is only late on the streets when helping the community during some project if it takes a little longer, but he never runs from a fight even if tired. Eraserhead was the only one to notice my little spy. I had sent a cat, he saw it and came up to pet it. He noticed the dark material it was made of, asked if it was another one of the quirked animals in a sad voice and just grabbed him. He looked for a collar and found none obviously and started walking. While doing that he kept mumbling about taking him in and adopting him, so my little ally jumped out of his hands into the dark, vanishing. A mouse nearby told me that he was visibly upset. Other heroes patrol include an overgrown chicken, the dumpster fire, and Edge Shot. They seem to patrol during the night without a set schedule or patrol route. There is also the early morning heroes, but I do not think I will be strong enough to keep my shadow friends in the sunlight for very long. It is now time to pull of the next part of my plan. Using the animals I search for crimes in progress, then I teleport via darkness to any nearby hero and get their attention. Once they chase me, I can lead them to the crime scene. My shadows stall the villain until I arrive. That was the plan, at least till I am strong enough to fight criminals myself, but turns out my little friends are stronger than expected. They found a man robbing a young girl at knife point, but before I could reach Amplifier, the thug was running away from the scene without a single thing. He had bite marks and dozens of black crows had pecked him badly. I decided to finish the job myself and teleported one ally in front the man. I had my mask and hood on. He freaked out when he looked at me when I was made of the same thing my friends were. For dramatic effect, one of the crows landed on my shoulder. He was already trembling, so I decided to summon a lot more friends. The dude passed out. I tied him up with some shadow chains, took his knife with my gloves and pulled him back to the crime scene where the girl was no longer. I got a warning that the cops had been called and I heard sirens, so I left the man and his blade for them to collect. Then I waited till I heard them arrive, but when they turned the corner I was already gone. Tsukachi POV. Today was the first day I am out of the cast and already overwhelmed. I thought I had caught up with all the paperwork while in cast because I didn't go on patrol, but it seems to never end. Lately there has been an increase in crime. Some new drag has been circulating and more thugs are on the streets. I guess I will have to pull an all-nighter. It was maybe 2 a.m. when we got a call. Some young girl got pulled into an alleyway and robbed at knife point when suddenly several black dogs and cats ran at the thug and bit him dozens of times. Following that, roughly 30 crows flew in and pecked the man half to death. He ran without taking a single thing from the girl trying to get away. Yay, Naomi will have to catch some idiot, but it will probably be easy. He seems to have left a trail of BLD, the girl explained before leaving in case he would come back. I am more worried to deal with some crazy animals. When we arrived, all we found the place she told us about, we didn't see a single animal. All we found was an unconscious man matching the girl's description. Next to him was the knife he had, but just far enough he wouldn't reach it if he woke up. His binds were not rope though. He was confined by some black chains. When we pointed our flashlights at them, they started to dissolve. Great, someone used their quirk on the poor man. Maybe the animals are quirked. Wouldn't be the first or last time this has been seen. If I am not mistaken, Eraser said something about a quirked black cat made from something that looks like condensed darkness. This will be a long night. Izuku POV. I feel amazing. I took out a criminal. Well, actually my little friends did, but I like to think that they are a part of me. I would put on some music to celebrate, but I still haven't charged my earphones and I don't have a phone. I also don't have food and a bed, but I am dead. Besides some minor headaches when I am in the sun, I don't need these things. But if I want to do something when the sun shined, I will have to get used to the slight burning and lightheadedness and increase my tolerance. I do have one way to deal with those and my money problem. It might not seem much, but people are really careless with coins. From 1 yen coins dropped in the sidewalk to some 10 and 50 yen coins forgotten in vending machine change slots. And the sewers. So many people drop coins into sewer drains, it is crazy. It might not seem like much, but when you have rodents and birds in every corner of a huge city, it stacks up. Then there is all of the jewelry dropped everywhere. From earrings to necklaces and rings, but I feel like that would be concerning if a 12-year-old boy brought half a bathtub filled with expensive jewels to a pawn shop. Maybe the owner would think I have a quirk to find or make them, in which case I would get in trouble for illegal quirk use. Or he would think I stole them and call the cops. Not great either way. The total in dropped change is enough to buy myself the necessities and a lot more. It took 2 whole days for my shadows to collect most of the money, and I have a lot of friends. I went to the bank to exchange the coins for a little more. I bought myself a decent mattress, a cheap computer and phone, food and some civilian clothes, so when I walked during the day I wouldn't be recognized. Good thing that we live in a world where no one bats an eye at someone wearing a mask midday. During the day I now usually visit either the library or the coffee shop nearby. These 2 places have nice and dark corners. I enjoy reading and learning new things, so I grab some books and chill in a corner for hours. Usually I read about fantasy and quirk history. I can charge my devices in there and I can finally have my music again. I am a regular at both places and the employees are quite nice. Originally I had to communicate using pen and paper, but the librarian lady gave me a pass so I don't have to talk with anyone. She even custom printed it writing mute clients so it would be easier. As for the coffee place, they surprisingly have a girl who knows sign language. I was so happy. It has been a hassle ever since I died. Not being able to talk has been so annoying. The only issue is that the cafe is really warm and I have to wear a turtleneck or hoodie. Otherwise my scar would be visible, and while I am not insecure about it, it could be a tell if my description went public. I wonder how much that thug could remember after the shock. 𝐻𝗧𝗟𝗘, of course it isn't an innocent little kitty that has a quirk due to some experiments. It just had to be a vigilante. It is either that or the poor dude was too embarrassed to admit that he was beaten by a bunch of wild animals. I don't have time to deal with this. If his description is accurate, this vigilante used animals made of smoke or something unknown to attack him. He says he tried to cut them down but they vanished. And of course the man has no description of them. All he saw was someone on the street. He was running on away from the animals. The person had all black hoodie and cargo briefs, a black mask, gloves and earphones, and dark red shoes. It was dark and the unknown assailant had his hood up, so we don't know his hair color, eye color, or anything at all. The only thing we know is that they are short, most likely the size of a 13-year-old. But the one thing we know is that he had lots and lots of friends in the form of black animals. The man apparently fainted from the pain, but the doctors said that they were only minor injuries. It was fear. He called them the nightmare. So original. I checked the quirk databases dozens of times. Someone like that does not exist, yet I heard no lie during the interview. After the initial attack, the nightmare went silent for like a week. This does not make my job easier. Izuku POV. I was running through the darker streets after a break from my first villain encounter. I wanted for the cops to know my description so I wouldn't be mixed up with the villains. Though they probably still don't trust me. I had received a warning by one of his shadows about a grocery store robbery in progress. Of course I could just teleport, but the fresh air was just so satisfying. I also finally had music playing in his earphones. Besides, it is closed, there are no hostages. Currently he was listening to Run Boy Run by WhatIf. Not my song. Show them some love and support. It is a great song. It was fun and fitting. Run Boy Run. This world is not made for you, run boy run. They're trying to catch you, run boy run. Running is a victory, run boy run. Beauty lays behind the hills, run boy run. The sun will be guiding you, run boy run. They're dying to stop you, run boy run. This race is a prophecy, run boy run. Break out from society, I arrive to the crime scene to witness a hooded man running out of the store with what seems bags full of canned soup and some bread. That is the only thing the poor man stole. He probably has little to no money and couldn't afford food. The alarm and glass door are molten, though they must have triggered even if for a short moment because my shadows say that a cop car just drove in our direction. I follow him with no sound. Being made of darkness helps with stealth a lot. Tomorrow is another day and you won't have to hide away, you'll be a man boy. But for now it's time to run, it's time to run. Run boy run. This ride is a journey to run boy run. The secret inside of you, run boy run. This race is a prophecy, run boy run. And disappear in the trees. The man ran into an ally, then another and another. After what seems like a solid 10 minutes of running in a maze, he finally stops and runs through a door. I follow him now in shadow full form till he reaches the rooftop. Tomorrow is another day and you won't have to hide away, you'll be a man boy. But for now it's time to run, it's time to run. Tomorrow is another day and when the night fades away you'll be a man boy. But for now it's time to run, it's time to run. My song has stopped as I witness a sad scene. Dozens of empty food cans and water bottles. The man takes off his hood to reveal a black-haired man with dozens of scars. He has burned flesh all over his body, only held together by medical staples and a dream. He unpacks his bags and grabs a can. The man uses his quirk to make a blue flame at the tip of his finger. He is warming his food. At least he is not crazy. Decide to reveal myself, so I teleport back to the stairs and walk up a floor so he hears me. I arrive at the door and open it. My face meets his and he looks shocked. He actually choked on his soup. Did he not hear me? I thought I was loud. That is what Mom always said. I just stand there. Within a few seconds he clears his throat and yells, "Who the F are you? Where did you come from?" See, I can't talk. Aren't you gonna say anything, brat? He is still yelling and threw an empty can at me that I dodged. Nope. Screw this. I didn't think this through. I turn around to leave, but before I could fully open the door, he slams his fist next to my face, melting the door. I could run, but he might attack me next time he sees me, and I don't want an enemy with a fire quirk. If artificial light can hurt me, then I do not want to know what he could do if he sneaked up on me. My train of thought is stopped as he grabs my collar. Now I try to mouth, "I am sorry," and put my hands into an apology motion, but I don't think he saw any of it. He is just angry. Not gonna talk, huh? I saw that he was just rambling, so I did something. Something dumb. I slipped out of his hold by making myself more shadow than physical and stepped a bit back. He noticed and ran at me, yelling when I turned around and jumped to the roof, then turned into the darkness. The look in his eyes as he saw me jump, but when he ran by the edge he didn't see my body falling or hit the floor. Then I was back on the roof, on top of the roof entrance, sitting. He stared down for another solid minute before turning and mumbling, "What the F?" Then he saw me. What the F? A mix of confusion and terror in his voice was visible. He took a step back and tripped. In the wrong direction. I had to teleport to the edge of the roof next to him and catch him so the dude wouldn't fall. Oh, I am going to have so much fun with him. The poor guy just sat down, obviously panicked. Who the hell are you? You show up without noise, escape my hold, jump of a fing roof, somehow end up at the top of the entrance, and save me from falling by appearing in front of me while I fall after you gave me a heart attack. I only nod. I also have a grin under the mask, but he doesn't see it. At least talk, you crazy. And he grabbed me by my throat and shook me a bit. Bad choice. The memories of mother kicked in and I went a bit apeshit. I kicked him in the guts, dug my nails in his hands, dozens of dark chains popped up and pried him violently away from me, some around his burnt flesh. 2 larger dogs also showed up that growled at him. I think I was having a panic attack. My chest tightened, I couldn't hear anything except my heartbeat. It was hard to breathe, so I ripped my mask off. My breathing was short and rapid. I felt like my hoodie was choking me like she did, so I pulled it away from my skin. He might have used his fire to get out of his chains, and my dogs disappeared due to the fire, and he was trying to say something. Dobby POV. This random dude showed up, scared the living SHT out of me, didn't talk, and when I tried to shake him for answers, crazy, kicking me and having some kind of dark chains suddenly bind me as some dogs appeared next to him. His breathing went nuts and his eyes widened so much they went black somehow. He ripped his mask off. He is a kid. Then he tugged at his hoodie, trying to open up as much space around his neck as possible. The kid was hyperventilating. So much trembling and tears. I had to burn the chains, but they disappeared when my fire touched them. So did the dogs. Now here I am, next to the unknown attacker that managed to surprise me, escape my hold and scare the living F out of me only to have a panic attack. What am I supposed to do? This reminded me of 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. Back when we were little, he was easily to scare and went into a state of panic when he was scared. Back then all he needed was a distraction, so I carried something weird on me at all times. I have given him a wood toy, a pair of glasses, a spoon, a bag of sand, and once I gave him a single bean. After a while he seemed to get better, not having any more panic attacks, so I stopped carrying interesting stuff. The kid's reaction was several times worse than 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏's, but the symptoms were similar. In a panic I handed him a can of soup. Instead of grabbing it, he phased through my hand and the can. But the sight of the can might have been enough to get his mind out of whatever state he was as he stopped trembling. His eyes were at least somewhat normal and tears stopped. He was still hyperventilating. Breathe, kid. Breathe. It took another couple of minutes for him to fully calm down, but when he was done I decided to make a flame so I could properly see his face. The stars were not enough. He winced at the flame, so I kept it low. Now that I was looking at him, I could tell a number of things. He looked about 12, just like my little brother. He had black hair and eyes. Scratch that. He was completely black except his skin, which was a sickening white. Like the kid had not stepped into the sun once his entire life. As I looked at him, he seemed to move back slowly from the light. You don't like the fire? The kid nodded. Why not say anything? He seemed to flinch at the question and avoid my eyes, but after a while he put his hands down from his black shirt and a horrific scar around his throat was visible. Did me grabbing him there trigger his panic attack? Did I trigger some bad memories? I asked with a bit concern. He nodded his head several times. And that is why you don't talk. This time he hesitated but nodded again. Izuku POV. Great. I just showed this rando my most distinctive part. If he saw me in civilian, he might not recognize me, but the scar is a clear giveaway. Then again, I ripped my mask off in a panic. Why did you follow me, kid? The guy asked. Then he face-bombed. You're mute. I shook my head and he looked at me amused. I know how to communicate. I always have something to write on. But he might have issues reading in the dark, and I don't want him making his fire bigger. It already hurts a bit. I fished my phone out of my pocket and typed, I saw you steal food and thought you might need some help. He read the text and looked at me in a funny way. You thought I need help. 𝐶𝐻𝗃, did I offend him? Kid, you're half my age, mute and flinch at light. You clearly need help more than me. The light is quirk drawback. Muteness is no big deal and I have a lot of cash. So I thought that if I gave you some you could buy food legally. The man stared a good 2 minutes at the text, then at me. Really? And where did you get all that money you were talking about? The streets, sewers and trash. He looked at me, one eyebrow raised. So I summoned tens of mice and rats. We watched as they collected every empty can into a pile, then making a pyramid out of it. He turned his flame brighter to see it all. That hurt, so I backed away. It also made tens of my shadows vanish. Seeing that, he instantly lowered the flame again. How many can you make? And how far can they travel away from you? Thousands. And they can go where there is no light. Only problem is that I have to be near for them to be made. Can't make them appear at the other side of town. But they can travel away from me. Okay, I will admit that is cool. So, you want to help me? Well, that too. I would also like someone to bother if I am bored. After he read that, he looked up to see my grin. Then he laughed. Count me in, kid. You got spunk. Awesome. What's your name? Call me 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, he responded with a kind smile. I am 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, a little on the nose, don't you think? 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 answered, clearly enjoying this. I just shrugged. We kept talking for the rest of the night. Or he talked and I typed the answers on my phone. Dark mode is great. 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 POV. The entire police department was on edge. Now that we know to look out for animals made of pure darkness, we have found many all around the city. If we try to catch them, they vanish. There is one on every block or maybe even more. There are so many it is terrifying. The only thing stopping them is light. It destroys them. We think. If they are used against us, then even if we were under a full moon they could block out the sky for half the city. If the people found out that every cat, dog and bird is most likely a drone for someone, it would cause mass panic. Most of us are paranoid that they could attack at any moment and we would be dead in seconds. Thank God that the day makes them leave. Izuku POV. I was just sitting in the cafe, drinking my first cup of today, chatting with Dabi through text when I saw 𝗀_lady walk in. I told him that I had to go and listened her talk about some villains with the staff. She then proceeded to tell them how the villains took over the mall nearby and she had to ask for backup because she couldn't transform without crushing people and she had to put her hero costume on in the bathroom. I note this down. Then I waited for her to leave. I stayed for another couple hours before leaving like I would normally. I was ready to gain some blackmail material. I put my music on and went on a nice walk. Ghost, Confetti not my song. Show the original creators some love. La la la, look, I don't want to fight you got to know that I meant it when I said that I liked you or maybe just the idea I bought it. Don't want it, now return that like IKEA apologize. I'm not a mind reader, I need attention, so I try to be a crowd pleaser. It was easy, till it got a little deeper. Now I don't know how to deal with you, so I'm a disappear poof. It was the middle of the night when I reached the mall. I know I could have gone there via teleportation, but I have to get my steps in. From there I summoned some tiny shadow rats to search for the security room. It was easy. I'm a ghost now you see me, now you don't. I'm a ghost every time you hit the phone. I'm a ghost la 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 la. Now you see me, now you don't la 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 la. I know it's inconvenient to change your background, but let's back down so you can see this is a problem. I don't want to put myself in front of, that's why I blocked you, 'cause I'm not the guy you should rely on or spy on, creep on. I don't know, you just ain't that type of hoe. If I don't holler, let me go. I should have said it, but I didn't, and I won't. Poof. Once I had found it, I looked for the night guard. He was sitting and looking at the cameras. On the table was a bag of carrots, a protein shake, and a sandwich. The old camera records were behind a wall to the left of him, so that was where I teleported to. I'm a ghost now you see me, now you don't. I'm a ghost every time you hit the phone. I'm a ghost la 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 la. Now you see me, now you don't la la la. I know you hate me, hate me, hate me, hate me, hate me, 'cause I've been shady. Shady, shady, shady. I don't get reception. I missed your call, but best believe I got the message. Why don't you just leave me alone? I think it's lasted way too long. I thought by now that you would know, but since you don't, I'm a ghost now you see me, now you don't. I'm a ghost every time you hit the phone. I'm a ghost la 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 la. Now you see me, now you don't la 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 la. He didn't hear me enter the room, take the recording of yesterday's attack and grab it. I knew that the authorities might need it to confirm info about the attack, so I copied all of the info over to my computer piece by piece, then copied it over to an external drive before continuing. It was not the fastest sneaky job in the world, but I was lacking a better piece of technology. Once finally done, I put it all back and with my sound erased I left. It has been 6 hours since my little heist and I already found the exact time 𝗀_lady came into the battle with suit and earpiece. Had she not mentioned that she had to change in the public bathroom, I wouldn't have known to look. With that I just rewind the footage until a woman matching her build, hair and eye color entered the bathroom. I know what her civilian identity looks like. Now all to do is find out her real name. That too was terrifyingly easy. All I had to do is look at the hero school yearbooks 1 to 3 years prior to her first official debut. And I found her name. Like legal name. It is creepy how much can be found on the internet if you only know what you are looking for. Seriously. Why tell useful information in public? Why talk about how you had to jump in combat while out of hero costume and say where you put it on? Anyone with a couple brain cells can find out what you look like out of costume. They do not have to find your real name. All they have to do is see you in public and threaten you. If you are held hostage in the middle of a crowd, you are helpless. Thing dumb woman. I will have to make sure that from now on all info I use gets deleted. I wrote all of the info down before putting it in the darkest part of the school. Somewhere where no one could find it. The ventilation. Lady. Yu Takayama. I have been busy. With dozens of fights I have analyzed over the span of the last month, I have noted down every trick, advantage and flaw in every fighting style of the heroes and villains. Using these I made my extreme workout plan. Each night and day for a whole 2 weeks I have been doing nothing but train. My body is still frail, but since I don't technically need food, sleep or breaks as long as I am in darkness, I can train non-stop. So I locked myself in the basement of the school. All I had to do was put down all distractions. I sent 𝗧𝗫 a text that I would be training and not by my phone for like 2 weeks, and if he needed some cash I had some old jewelry I couldn't sell to anyone legally, but if he knew someone who wouldn't ask questions he could have half the profits. 𝗧𝗫 has not committed any crimes ever since I've started providing him with money. I know because I have eyes everywhere. The guy has been keeping humble, not buying anything he didn't need. In return he gave me useful connections in the underworld. He is an informant working with anyone who pays right for things he knows. Therefore he was more than happy to introduce me with his line of work. I do have the perfect quirk for just that. Gathering information in the darkest parts of the city. That is where most interesting things happen after all. But now I had to stop learning about the gray zones of the law. I had an intense workout in front of me. In a week there are 168 hours. In 336, and it takes roughly 100 hours to learn a skill. Considering I have been working on improving my martial arts skills with 0 breaks, I would say I can defend myself okay. I know how to do most things with my body structure. The rest I am not able to do because I am way too skinny. I have tried getting more mass, but I guess my death stopped that plan before it was made. Or maybe it is because I forget to eat. Now that I am done with my technique, I have to make sure I do not die the moment I enter the light. First thing would be sleeping. I don't have to usually, but if I don't for too long then I do feel tired the moment I am in the sun. Of course it is not as bad as it would be if I was alive, but 2 weeks might be too much even for me. With that I went to sleep. When I woke up I called upon my friends to grab my hidden stash of uncooked ramen and several water bottles. I was going to eat several cold meals, but it is fine. I kind of have to force myself to act human while in the dark because I lose all of my natural necessities. When I had made sure that I wouldn't starve the second I walked out of the basement, I opened the doors. Going through the school felt weird. I was sure I did not leave it in such a mess. If I hadn't sent my shadows to check I would have assumed that the heroes or some homeless people ravaged my home, but the only living being in here was 𝗧𝗫. He was sitting in the middle of my room. I warned him that I was coming into the room using dozens of shadow dogs. Once he saw them he made his flames small enough so they would not disappear. Then I walked in. As soon as he saw me he freaked out. Like screaming my name in all 5 stages of grief, freaking out. Then he kept yelling questions. Where the hell were you? Do you know how worried I was? I thought my only friend was dead. You just disappeared. I might have been high, hallucinating or just gone crazy, but I think he hugged me. The hell you talking about? I had to ask my friends to bring me my pen and paper so I could answer. What happened? I told you I was off to train for 2 weeks. Then I would be back. 2 weeks my butt. It has been a month. What? My look said it all. How the hell did you keep track of time? By asking the animals if the sun was up or not every couple of hours. Well, I think you did not even ask once a day. I don't even know how you can have such a bad feel for time. I guess time is weird even when not in the abyss but only darkness. I have been on the streets again. Many thugs have been walking around the city robbing people. They were no real challenge for my friends and me. I decided to have a more hands-on approach so I would gain experience through fights and not only training. After all, I do not want to be helpless the moment I have to fight someone who knows martial arts better than me. All I had to do is distract them from the victims with chains or animals. Then I would use all I have learned from all the training. These guys are not trained at all. The moment I hit the weapon out of their hands they resort to quirk use. The quirks they have could be strong if trained right, but they are nothing more than bumbling idiots. The last guy I fought could turn plastic into spikes that can cut through steel. He could have fought by throwing bottles at his enemy and turned them into spikes the last second and beat his enemies with the element of surprise. Or let his enemies catch them and then make them into spikes piercing their hands. Instead he used his power to make knives to rob people with. Once he ran out he just tried to run. The guy before him had a mutation quirk that made him into an armadillo. He used it to roll downhill faster. Seriously. You have an almost perfect defense and you use it to go down faster. Like at least try to learn close combat and using the fact you do not have to worry about your biggest blind spot. Within 2 days I have taken down more than 13 villains. I started waiting till the cops arrived by the crime scene and let them see me for less than a second in their peripheral vision like an unnerving shadow. Let them see me but never properly meet me. It has been a good while since I have been in the cafe and library. Lately I have been spending more time with dabs in the underworld part of town. Their villains and underground heroes can get info. I like finding things out and 𝗧𝗫 makes sure the clients receive the knowledge I provide for the right price. He knows my moral code and how I feel about people who do illegal things because they like to and are not forced by fate. If he finds that kind of people, he gives me an opportunity to take them down and locked up. That is how I ended up in this situation. In front of me is a pretty well-known villain named 𝗏𝗡𝐿𝐴. 𝗧𝗫 had supplied some info broker named 𝗧𝗜𝗔 about an international drag trade crew I recently spied on, and he told 𝗧𝗫 about some strong dude who was going to 𝗏𝗡𝐿𝐴 to kill some tough heroes. 𝗧𝗜𝗔 mentioned something about him being bad for business because he attacks without thinking and often doing more damage to his own allies than the enemy. So I went there to remove him from the streets. What I didn't expect was that he would lure out the rescue hero's water hose by starting several fires. I knew that they were strong, but he was crazy to lure them out when other heroes were not far. Nonetheless, it was bad. Civilians all around panicking, couple buildings burning, people dying. And the heroes were losing. The fires weakened my powers, but chilling with 𝗧𝗫 plus the help of the firemen helped. The 2 heroes were alive but hurt badly. Most likely about to pass out from the BLD loss. 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 was staring with a big grin. This was no man but monster. I was above the battlefield, standing on a large eagle silently fanboying about the half-dead heroes. The burnings made a sort of arena by falling down and making a barrier. I called upon my strongest shadows to break through the blockade to make an opening for those who could walk. Several horses with black chains connected to the debris pulled away. I jumped down, reaching the battlefield with a loud thud. I didn't do it for the dramatic effect but for the distraction. And it worked. 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 whipped around and stared at me for like half a second before screaming, "Who the hell are you?" Using that distraction, I made chains that pulled the wounded water hose heroes away from the villain. It did not go unnoticed. "You're not going anywhere," he yelled, but using his own shadow I held his arm with the biggest chain I could muster up. Instantly he knew it was my doing and rushed at me. My animals had made an opening for the civilians, so I turned them into gorillas. They started lifting the wounded and carrying them out. 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 was not exactly hard to dodge. I did have a lot more darkness than before as the fire was disappearing. I was landing some okay hits even. The one time he managed to feint an attack perfectly and hit me, I was too close to the fire. I half blocked the attack to my ribs but still flew back several meters. I only stopped because my eagle swooped down to catch me before I crashed into the rubble. Bleeding for a good minute, I counted my wounds. One of my ribs was broken and so was my arm that I blocked with. Coughing up BLD, and for a second I felt like I was going to die again. Then I was thrown in the dark and my wounds fixed themselves. The villain was giving some monologue about how he wanted to fight someone strong, but he was disappointed, but I would lie if I said I was listening. I am no hero and lack experience. I'm not dumb enough to not know that. That was why I was not fighting but stalling. More heroes would arrive soon, until then I cold help save people and stall him. We kept dancing like that for several more minutes. Most of the civilians gone and the heroes arriving to clear the area. The police also arrived in full SWAT gear. Several of them noticed my animals helping people, and I think they recognized them because they kept saying that the nightmare is here helping. Then they saw me and their theories seemed to be confirmed. The combined forces were closing in to the battle. Helicopters passed overhead with light beams. They weakened me, but I was not that worried. If it wasn't for the fact that he saw I was not listening, he might not have realized I was doing other things. Once he noticed, though, he changed his tone. He started aiming for the cops and civilians. The heroes tried to shide them, but their movement was halted. Now I was a bit annoyed. I was playing distraction so well and he was ignoring me. Was I not good enough? I was not a bit annoyed. I was sad. Using the darkness, I made several nets to catch the biggest rocks he threw. He looked at me with a "You're still here" look and he scoffed at me. "Aren't you like weak against the light? These cops are already shining enough light to make wounds do damage, right? And your little friends don't seem to like the light as well. You ruined my fun fight and stalled enough, so skedaddle. You are no longer needed." I took that personally. I really did. This entire fight I had to save people, hold him off and make sure no one was hurt or killed from the collateral damage. Now that the heroes arrived, I was no longer interesting. I was so sad I made all of my strong animals vanish and called some of my other friends. More precisely, every crow I had in the entire city. I never counted, but I knew I had a lot. I proceeded to block out the sky, the fire, the heroes and everything else except me and him. A flying cage of shadow birds, it was pure darkness and silence. My friends made no sound while flying. The pitch black was the perfect condition for me to summon more friends. I had an infinite source of darkness. It was literally pure darkness. Almost as dark as the abyss. 𝗏𝗡𝐿𝐴 didn't see anything because he did not have a sight quirk, but he ran randomly around punching the air. If he hit the cage, he was met with sharp beaks and claws ripping parts of his flesh off. The light outside the dark cage made many birds disappear, but true darkness let me replace every lost ally with 5 more. No one could get in or out. He was panicking, but he stood, not wanting to get put into the bird blender again. He waited for me. He kept yelling for me to say something. I think he didn't like the darkness and the silence. It took only a moment, but without warning, every punch I threw damaged the man. His counters hit only to heal faster than he could land the next. But I was gone by then anyway. The unnerving feeling that I could be anywhere, that the birds could be anywhere, made him freak out. He ran straight with the hope to hit me or exit the cage. Instead, I met him with a knee to the chin, then a kick to the side of his head, and lastly a punch to the bridge of his nose. He was down. With that, I teleported out of the area and let my birds fly into the night. I went home. Our favorite detective POV. Are you kidding me? The nightmare that stopped low-level thugs just a few days ago turned up to a massive fight and threw hands with an A-rank villain. And he won. The moment I arrived and saw the shadow animals, I knew it was him, but actually seeing the rumored vigilante instead of him being on the edge of my vision every time we arrived to clean after him up was a new level of weird. Then to also see him fight. The dude was holding back while fighting for his life because he was helping people. Once he saw that all people were gone, he showed his true colors. So many crows. The horde just grew. We tried several light sources, but they did not stop coming. For 10 minutes there was nothing to do. We stopped the fire and rescued the last wounded, but no matter what we did, no one knew what was happening inside. Then it was gone. Birds flying away, nightmare missing, and an unconscious 𝗏𝗡𝐿𝐴. They had so many scrapes and claw marks, like he had punched the blades of a turned-on blender. Just like the rest of the criminals that fought him, 𝗏𝗏𝐿𝐴 reported the same description and the fact that the nightmare refused to speak. Not that we didn't know that. Because he had to be seen by some news helicopters. My phone has been blowing up ever since the videos started circulating. He spread like wildfire in terms of popularity. My higher-ups want to arrest or rehab him and turn him hero. And I have been drowning in paperwork because of him. I need a nap, Izuku POV. Well, that went well. 𝗏𝗏𝗏 yelled once I walked into the little bar we co-own. Yeah, we bought a bar. It is mostly for him to live at and trade info. It is our personal location and our clients know where to find us. I grabbed my phone the moment he said that. What went well? Your fight with 𝗏𝗏𝐿𝐴, of course. The man practically yelled. How do you know that? Dabs looked dumbfounded by that question. The news station had a helicopter broadcasting the entire fight. Did you not notice it? I was a bit busy. The scarred man laughed at my response. You can say that again. From there our conversation went down the business route. I finally went back to the cafe. The staff seemed glad to see me. I think they missed me. They said that they were worried because I never go a week without coming in here. I had never given them my name, so they always called me funny nicknames, and I liked that tradition. It was sweet. And I did miss their coffee. It was also the only place beside the library where I wasn't getting constantly questioned why I wasn't at school, home, etc. I bought myself a nice warm coffee and just chilled in my little brooding corner, as they called it. I told them I was at my grandparents' across the country. Me and the nice girl who knows sign language chatted for a bit before she went back to work. She is a bit like a big sister to me. And the owners are such a sweet couple, always asking if I need anything. Just wholesome. I was just chilling on top of a roof in my vigilante suit listening to AC/DC when I felt a pair of eyes staring straight at me. My shadows said that a certain four-armed man was staring straight at me. Being in a good mood, I decided to greet the hero, so I jumped down into the alley and walked out on the dark street. There he stood, both pairs of arms crossed. He seemed mad, but not in an angry way. More like a disappointed parent way. He seemed a little bit surprised that I showed up, but he quickly masked his shock with a slightly less mad face than before. If this was a trap, I had more than enough shadows nearby to help me out. I looked at the hero challengingly, so he started talking. Nightmare. You seem like an okay guy, saving lives and all, but I have to say, you are disappointing. I turned my head in confusion. I had never interacted with him before, so what was he talking about? He wasn't continuing, so I signed a simple what. I didn't know if the man in front of me knew sign language, but I had the suspicion that he knew it. I mean, the man visits disabled children's hospitals, elderly homes, and orphanages in his free time to help out. He was bound to learn the basics at least. So you can communicate? He replied with a sharp tone. Correct. I never said I couldn't. True, but you never talk and no one has seen you do hand signs. I usually do not have conversations. Alright, let's talk business. I want you to help the community with that quirk of yours. I want you to use your animals to clean the nearby woods of any trash. There is way too much of it. This took me by surprise. A hero was suggesting me to use my quirk illegally. Are you, a hero, asking me to commit vigilantism? That is not hero-like. He seemed amused by my blatant sarcasm. The slightly scary hero started laughing. Ha, you've got me there. I guess that isn't very hero-like. But for real now, I am investigating a company named 𝐻𝗧𝗟𝗃. They do trash collecting. They say that they dispose of it in a safe way, but I think that they are burying it in the woods. The company has 2 trash disposal sites on paper, but I have not seen them work in months. And many of their trucks are driving near the woods. It is private property and I lack evidence to get a warrant. The national park close to it has been looking horrible, most likely due to poisoning. If you can bring us proof, we can save the trees there. The man had a compelling argument and I was going to agree, but I needed a few more answers. But before I could ask any of them, he interrupted my train on thought. By the way, got a better name than Nightmare. It seems excessive. Yeah, no one asked before except one person, and I was called Nightmare because the villains like to be dramatic and the news go with the drama flow. The name's Kage. It is a pleasure. Likewise. Anyways, why me? You could have paid a private investigator and you wouldn't get in trouble if someone found out. But if it comes to light that you asked me, then you could lose your hero license. Loads of paperwork saved. If I hire someone, then I will have to present the proof and will have to deal with all the paperwork. But if you do it, then the police on your case will have to do it. They are trained to deal with that and will be faster than me. And I will have more time to help the community. He spat out without even thinking, probably saying several things that could get him in trouble. Whoa, brutally honest. Fair. And why the rude start of the conversation? Why call someone disappointing if you are going to ask them for help? This time he hesitated. The man looked nervous. I kind of hoped that it would make you want to prove me wrong. I feared that you would decline, but I really need some help on this case. That is just suspicious. But whatever. The hero has his reasons. Fine, I will help. Thank you, Kage. He half yelled before giving me a handshake. That was very weird. Bakugu POV. I was watching the news in the middle of the night because I couldn't sleep when they were showing the attack on Mustafu. Seeing these great heroes loose made my BLD boil. Water Hose was a duel made in heaven, and here they were, getting crushed by some muscle freak. They were at death's door when this cool emo dude jumped down from who knows where. Muscular yelled at this new guy, so he obviously was not the villain's ally. While talking, the almost dead heroes were pulled away by some black chains, and as soon as the freaks saw this, a fight started. Well, it was more that the new dude was dodging all attacks as more things made out of the same thing as the chains started forming. They seemed to be animals and they helped with rescue. Must be some underground support hero. Deku would probably know his hero name. Why can't I get him out of my mind? It has been months. Why do I have to suffer because of him? Anyways, it seemed like the new guy was stalling but also putting up a pretty good fight when without any warning Muscular faked an attack and landed a hit almost directly to his ribs. The only thing saving the masked man from death was the half-butted block he put up. It seemed that the new cool guy was out for the count, getting thrown into the fiery rubble when a massive bird made out of the same kind of shadow as the rest of his friends swooped down. It caught him and threw him in the darkest part of the makeshift arena. Then his slightly unnaturally twisted arm went back to normal and the patch of BLD forming where he was hit disappeared. So he can control the dark and heal with it. That is so OP. Muscular kept blabbering about how he was looking for a good fight and that the water heroes or the new guy was not good enough, but the hero said no word. Actually, he hadn't said a single word. After some more taunting and the police arriving with backup, Muscular basically told hit enemy to screw off like he was just a bug. Out of nowhere hundreds of blackbirds flew around, blocking out all the light and encasing the villain and hero in a ball. The other heroes and cops tried to get in but nothing worked. It even started to grow. After 10 or so minutes they dispersed, only leaving a bloody unconscious villain with his enemy nowhere to be seen. Betis. I'll have to check tomorrow's news to find this guy's name. Maybe he has merch. Izuku POV. It has been 3 days since 𝐴𝐻 asked me for help and I have been noting down every route, truck and employee. The more I am finding out, the more fishy this whole organization seems. The trash that they clean up can be biological, acidic, radioactive, and they still wear the same gear, which is dangerous. Hazmat's trucks have changeable number plates which are totally illegal. They lack the containment equipment to safely transport several kinds of waste. And based on the city camera system I accessed, though a lot of struggle, at least once a month all the trucks seem to leave and drive to another city. Small infringements that add up to a lot of legal trouble. They could get sued but the city does nothing. Hazmat is a private contractor hired by the mayor. Possibly a way to cheaply get rid of the waste and act like the streets are safely cleaned. And the rest of the taxpayer money goes to an offshore account maybe. Who knows? But the mayor is in on it, so corruption is evident. I am starting to see why 𝐴𝐻 asked me, a vigilante, to get the proof. By the time I actually went to check out their base of operations, I had more than enough to get them shut down and the owners arrested. The woods were in a bad shape. I saw massive gray buildings and warehouses. For a trash disposal company, they had a lot of security. It was weird, but I already expected it to be a front for like a meth lab. The thing I didn't expect was something far more horrific. With darkness everywhere, it was easy to sneak in. But then I saw them. Humans. Dozens of tied-up humans. Crammed in small cells and chained to the wall. I felt a knot twist in my stomach. These guys are human traffickers. The cells were dark since it was nearing midnight. People that are held here are sick, malnourished, and some are even drugged. I wanted to vomit, but I stayed strong. These people needed help. I had to get back and tell the heroes what is happening. I took a lot of photos. As I was teleporting, I left several of the smallest shadows I could make. Mice. Using them, I listened in for any information, but I was not met with good news. Several men clad in black seemed to be working on the trucks. They kept talking about how in 2 days they would leave again. The once-a-month drive they make. Most likely when they will drive the kidnapped people away to the client. I teleported through the darkness till I reached some office. It was empty, so I placed some lookouts by the hallway that connected to this room and started searching for any information. I landed on a journal where I saw checklists of what kind of people they had to kidnap. Age, gender, quirk, etc. It also had a bunch initials by every person. Probably the client that ordered that particular kid of person. There was a BM, QB, Doc, jjischill, and a few more. It also had a list of locations where they would meet their associates. They were going all over the country and possibly even out of Japan, since some of the locations were at the docks. I had all I needed, so I used the dark to teleport out of there. Once home, I copied all of the photos on an untraceable USB stick together with a document where I wrote down all the info I had and a meeting place in case they needed some more info. It was a neutral bar in the underground. I signed it as Nightmare. Then I tied it to one of my bigger dogs and sent him to the police station where my favorite insomniac detective was. The moment he saw the dog, he froze. I probably didn't do him any favors with my stunt against muscular. Bakugu POV. I had a blast researching about the mystery guy once the news revealed that he was a vigilante. His name is Nightmare and he has been saving people for weeks. High animals have been looking over the streets for much longer though. He has an awesome quirk and he is known to leave all criminals crying or unconscious. He saves people from the shadows and deals with thugs by making shadow animals and chains that stop them. Screw support, the guy doesn't seem to have clear limit on how many things he can make. He could be a top 10, but it seems he would rather work outside of the law. Sadly, he doesn't have any merch yet, but since his first public appearance was yesterday, the merch might appear soon. I wish I could meet him one day. Izuku POV. I have been to places that are called the gray zones often enough, thanks to dabs, but it doesn't change the fact that it is creepy. It is in a back room of a bar next to a massive shopping center. The best hid places are those right under one's nose after all. The owner seems to have money. Lots of it. The price wasn't crazy, but the amount of gold decorations made me question their quality. So either he is a fraud, acting like a big shot, or he has a lot of traffic. And I know that the bar is dry for most of the time. I made sure to have a list of people that are allowed to enter. It really only had the one detective who seems to be on my case based on the amount of times he has arrived at the crime scene when I am involved. I also gave the green light for the cat guy cop. He seems nice. And if they have anyone else, then they get kicked out. After sitting for an hour and being offered a drink several times which I refused, being underage, the detective finally arrived. Alone. Though not fully. The undercover bus was located in the best lit parking spot of them all. Smart, but one of my animals was long in the bus before it left the police station. They didn't check there. And the bus had more than enough shadows. I also counted 10 armed officers with guns, and strong lights scattered in the well-lit mall acting like civilians. With them were a couple of heroes too. I know that because they too arrived in masked police buses. A dead giveaway to anyone who knows every number plate of the police's cars. Their garage is not well lit. I made myself a mental list to steal the recordings of the cameras. The cop bowed in a respectful way, probably trying to butter me up, and sat down. Tsukachi POV. This bar might have the reputation for being a gray zone in the underworld, but when the owner of the place is the best undercover agent in the country, it doesn't get much more one-colored. This guy is surrounded by heroes and police officers, and he doesn't even know because we made sure to only be in light. Plus he organized the meeting in the evening so the mall is packed. It shows how inexperienced he is. He is probably in a rush to give more information about Hazmat. Good intentions. Maybe, but getting him off the streets will do good. Having this meeting is killing two birds with one stone. We can find more out about Hazmat and stop a vigilante. Our special light bulbs that can be turned on by 600% will stop him from teleporting, and if he tries to leave with force, we have Eraserhead, 𝗚𝗚𝗚, Kamui Wood and Death Arms plus several officers. He is trapped. The moment I walked through the door, I bowed and introduced myself. We estimated that he knows most of our names and faces through his animals, so the elite rescue team are out of city. He remained quiet, like always, but I got a head nod and a gesture to sit next to him. Once I sat down, he reached for his pocket. My instincts were screaming danger, but what he pulled out took me by surprise. He took a phone out. Who starts an info sharing session doing that? That is so weird. Probably his first time being an info broker. Then he turned it on and put on text to speech. Never mind. He is just going the extra mile to not talk. Detective. It is an honor to finally meet the man tasked on dealing with me. I apologize for all the paperwork I have given you. And I apologize for any future sleepless, paperwork-filled nights I will cause. I hope you can see past that for the greater good of the city. The honor is all mine. Meeting the man who eliminated one of the strongest villains in the country. As for the vigilantism, I will have to arrest you one day. But today we have to save a lot more people. The kidnapped take priority. Of course, I fully understand. Since my last message, I have compiled the less urgent information. I hope that you used my results to warn the heroes in the cities where the vehicles are going. Lying. Such a simple tool to fool those who are naive. Nightmare had his mask and hood on, but I could feel the smug smile he had after hearing that he wasn't a priority. If only he talked, then I could see if he is lying as well. But I would need to touch him and he has gloves on. So, what kind of information have you collected beside all of the things that you already brought? Simple things really. Truck plate numbers, number of employees, pictures of the higher-ranked ones, the quirks of roughly 90% of the goons there, some of the kidnapped people's identities, and a list of those who will be transported tomorrow. Then he handed me a folder filled with so many pages filled with greatly detailed information. He even had the blueprints to the base and trucks. What? That kind of information gathering takes months. Maybe weeks if you have an insider. But it has been roughly 16 hours. Impressive. That will greatly help with the raid. We will take care of the rest. Really? I know it isn't enough information to shut the entire organization down, but if you don't need any more help then I will excuse myself. This struck me as odd. Why would that not be enough? I have to ask. What do you mean? Is there more to be found? In that moment he looked at me like I was stupid. Then something must have clicked in his brain because he seemed to calm down. Tell me, detective. If a hero was to find all of this information out with illegal methods, what would happen? Especially if they are a small-time hero. Do you mean it? I pried too much and he changed the topic. If I don't answer he might not cooperate. He now knows I lack some critical information and he has a valuable bargaining chip. Well, I suppose they would get praised as heroes by the civilians, but they would lose their licenses or get punished severely at the bare minimum. Doing so much illegal information gathering is too much. Any hero not in the top 10, and even they would be harshly punished. Form entering property without a warrant, but also the amount of privacy breaches would be enough to lose the license. And the Hero Commission might want to swipe the fact under the rug that they hadn't found this massive human trafficking ring, but a single hero did it by just breaking the law. Otherwise the civilians might turn more to vigilantism. Then it clicked for me as well. Because he didn't have a license and only contacted the police, he stopped a mass panic and a crazy wave of vigilantism before it even started. If I didn't have a squad of people ready to take him down, I would love to work with him. He's a genius. Maybe he can be part of the vigilante rehab program. Very well, if that is the case, then I guess I can help people by sharing my speculations with you. Firstly, the reason why you have not caught them yet is because they have someone important to cover for them. They would have been found out if a single safety test was made at any of their locations. These tests are mandatory by the law of Japan. But there are people who can deal with inspectors if they are in high enough positions. They are also private contractors. They work for the city because the mayor hired them. He could in theory pardon them from any safety checks. So either he is part of the organization with them, he takes bribes, or he received orders from above. None of the options are good. Secondly, 𝐻𝐼𝐴𝐷 is not the kidnapping party. They are a mere storage unit. They do not kidnap the people and they don't sell them. 𝐻𝐼𝐴𝐷 is only a stop in the long journey. They keep logs on how long they have every person. They keep them so long until they die or get transported to the client. And they are most likely only one of several places where humans are held till sold. They are the equivalent of a holding cell in the police station before driven off to court or prison. If they are the only storage, then the mastermind is an idiot. Putting all of his merch in one spot is dumb, and putting mostly weak people at the location is bad for business. But if this is just an isolated location, meant to be found someday to throw the trail off their larger and more important locations, then it is perfect. Employees not dumb enough to expose themselves, but smart enough to not damage the little amount of merch they have or endanger their main clients. If that is the case, then we might be dealing with an international organization, and this location compared to a drag operation is nothing more than a street seller. Sooner or later he will be caught, but all he knows is a fake name and the number of the local dealer's burner he already threw away. This is so much more than a simple human trafficking ring. It is a full-out international scheme. So, you're saying that we are just doing what the mastermind wants? Yep. You know, we could really use someone like you in our ranks. You could join our little rehab system and have the same networks we have. You could work together with our best and help us stop these BSTRDS. I need to ask you a question, sir. How can I help? Is trust a big part of the job? I mean your job. This question felt odd. Like he was on to something. It is. Then I fear neither of us right for it. He knows. I went to push the hidden button in my sleeve to turn the lights on, but he was faster. A black knife appeared in his hand and was pointed to my throat. If I turned the light on, the shadow under chin would shield the blade and I'd be dead. But then it flew away. I pressed the button and a strong light appeared, but just as fast as it appeared it vanished following a loud shatter. He threw the blade at the lamp. It wasn't strong enough to make it disappear. We sat in darkness. I knew that my allies were seconds away, but I was a dead man. I had betrayed the man who made Muscular's hands look like they had been put in a blender. I heard a thump and half a second later the team busted the door down and turned blindingly strong lights on. All that was left was an old phone on the table. It was different than the one he used. A device for communication. On the screen was one message. Better luck next time, Izuku POV. I escaped the little ambush the detective made by wrecking the lights. I did have to use all of my concentration to make sure my knife didn't disappear. Once it was broken I was gone like the wind. I finally understood why 𝐴𝐻𝐼𝐾 asked me to do this job. He must have understood that there was something more but couldn't investigate without backlash. As for the cops and heroes, I must say I am a little disappointed. Their best plan was flawed enough for me, an unexperienced vigilante, to escape. Though my quirk is very versatile and I have not shown its limits yet. Still, a rigged room and a bunch of heroes and police officers should have at least given me trouble. I left them a little present. Something that 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 taught me when he was in our bar. We have become some kind of friends, so he gives me tips for free every so often. He uses burner phones that are untraceable. Using those he can communicate with the client with no risk. I sent the dear detective a code made for sharing locations in the underground. There I connected my birds with the GPS. We now had a way to talk and share locations. I also managed to steal the security camera feed, copy it and destroy the original. The Hero Commission should really be more careful. RD person POV. Unmarked cop vans were driving from several police stations to the base of 𝐻𝐼𝐾 and their trucks. They were followed by many other cars. Even 3 helicopters were not that far behind. They were packed full with police and heroes alike. In each bus was a monitor with dozens of red dots on a map. These were trackers. The phone gifted to the police by the vigilante named Nightmare had a code to access said map. It was a risk to run the code of a criminal, but they had no choice if they wanted to save people. There was no time. On the other end of the trackers were several black birds that had devices strapped around them. 4 were at the entrances of the base, 1 by every bus that was going somewhere, 1 at every meeting location listed in the journal, and 1 by the mayor's office. Local heroes and police of each location was granted an additional police van packed with the best of the best. In the most important locations, the base and the 4 highest priority clients was at least one of the top 15 heroes. All might and crust at the base of 𝐻𝐼𝐾. Endeavor at BM Hawks and Yoroimusha at Doc Best Genist and Wash at QB Miruko and Edgeshot at DT. This was the country's biggest raid in at least 40 years. And it was going to start at 2200 hours precisely. Izuku POV. I was in the air above the clods using his animals to watch over the operation. So many buses filled with people. There were only 10 minutes left before the raid would officially begin and the vehicles would be stopped. If there weren't so many villains, they would have taken them down before they left the base and had separate teams deal with the clients. But if a single slip-up happened and an employee warned any of the other parties, then they would lose the element of surprise. The hazmat workers were mostly small fries, but taking down the clients could grant the opportunity to arrest some high-level criminals. Only large organizations or powerful individuals need slaves. The dirty rich that buy anyone off, and organizations that use humans for unhuman things. Lab rats, organ farms, mind-controllable objects. The options are endless and equally horrific. And then it began. Sirens overtook half the country. Fights began and several people were already wounded or dead. The heroes and police tried to take them down with non-lethal force, but 𝐻𝐼𝐾 responded in tenfold. The buses were the weakest targets as each only had 6 to 8 enemies, but they had hostages. It was tough and I had to summon birds that snatched guns or bit the villains. Every so often we managed to take most down quickly. The mayor turned out to be a nasty kind of coward. As soon as his bodyguards fell, the gray-haired gentleman pulled several pistols out, ran through the park trying to find anyone to kill. He is trying to take as many people out before he was caught. Luckily, most of the people were evacuated. Sadly, not all. I tried to summon as many animals to him and the heroes were chasing him, but in an unlucky turn of events he found a family of 4. If it wasn't for a hero called 𝐴𝐿, the bullet would have killed the youngest of the children. A young girl no older than he was subdued a few seconds too late by the police and he managed to land another shot in the hero's chest. And 𝐴𝐿 was transported to the hospital. The hazmat base was the most difficult part. I used my animals to guide the heroes. They had 2 teams. One led by Eraserhead, Crust and Rocklock. They followed my mice to the prisoners and locked themselves in the massive room so the villains couldn't take hostages. As for the attacking group, the quirkist but was leading that team. I get that he is strong, but he basically announced his arrival by ripping the gates of its hinges. They could have just broken the gates open and had a few more seconds of surprise. But the information I gave and the combined forces of Japan's best heroes and police crushed the base's defense. The biggest problem were the clients. Most of them didn't show up to the meeting spot, which we feared. Instead, only low-level local thugs came to get the deliveries. Roughly 70% of all locations had small-time criminals that were hired through untraceable means, and as soon as they didn't report back on time, the real criminals were gone. The few that showed up were the big fish. A cult called the Creature Rejection Clan, or CRC, was working together with a B-rank villain called Dictator. They were no match against the heroes that arrived and they were arrested. The other high-level target that showed up was QB, I think. The only person that actually showed up was a young lady with purple hair and bangs covering her right eye. But as soon as Best Jeanist caught her, she screamed. A few seconds later, a massive swarm of bees were in the sky, and if Wash wasn't there to make a bubble for defense, they might have been stung. It didn't seem like a big deal to me, but Best Jeanist instantly reported that some villain named Queen Bee survived and was back. He didn't say that the moment he saw the girl, so she must have disguised herself well. The cops opened fire on the swarm while in the bubble. They shot several down. The swarm gave up trying to attack the enemies and flew back to the girl who had now fallen on the ground. That was when my crow saw something disgusting. Under the girl's bangs was eye mask and it had fallen. She was missing an eye and out crawled a bunch more bees. I ordered one of my animals to kill one of the bugs and bring it back to me. After the swarm flew away, the strike team went to the girl and didn't find a pulse. She was dead. Even the medics couldn't help her. And the swarm had spread out way too much for anyone to do something about it. With that, the raid seemed to be over. All of the tracked buses were stopped, the mayor captured, and several high-level clients arrested. My help was no longer necessary, so I pulled my animals back. A big victory. Almost flawless. So why did something feel off? I called all of my deployed shadows to go back and just double-check every position. I seemed to be just paranoid, but my gut was telling me that something was missing. So I retraced my steps. If hazmat was just the little prize to distract from the real goal, then why did the villains fight so hard? Why go and kill people before getting arrested? Why take hostages? They were fighting a clearly losing battle, so why extend their sentences? And why did so many of the top villains not present? I get being careful, but based of our investigation, hazmat existed for years as a front and they had loyal customers, employees, and had been very careful. Why would the clients not trust their dealers if they had so much time to build trust? Were they all paranoid? If I know one thing of the underground from personal experience, then it is that you show your face and stick your neck out to those you trust. Because if a seller can be found, he can't scam someone without consequences. It also goes the other way around, of course. And if one is caught because of the other, they rat them out. It is a pact of mutual destruction. That is why Dabs and Gyre know my face and I know theirs. So why send small fries to just another deal? Unless they knew about the attack. And hazmat had to take the fall because they were the ones to get caught. And they couldn't act differently than usual, or we might figure out that they knew. Then we might look deeper into their activities, manage to trace their steps, and find more out about their clients. And the hostages. It was meant for stalling. But if they knew, why not warn all clients? What if the only ones not warned were the ones they could afford to lose? They made it look like we busted some major criminals. They had 2 of the top 4 show up. But Queen Bee didn't seem too surprised to see the heroes arrive at her location. And all those bees. If she could control them, then why keep so many so close? Why not spread them out? They did appear really fast. So we saw 2 but captured 1. 𝐻𝐼𝐴 stalled and so did the mayor. The goal might have been to stop us from finding the real targets. We think we won because we caught the big fish but we missed the shark. But why stall if you knew that the attack was coming? Just tell the clients to not arrive beforehand. Unless they found out last minute and the clients were close already. The real targets might still be nearby. I only had a few animals in any other city beside Mustafu, so I couldn't scan the whole city, but with the few shadows I had I scanned as much as I could. While they did that I sent a text to the phone I gave the detective. Nightmare, send backup to the places where the clients should have been. I think they were warned of our attack last second. So they might still be there. Tsukachi, what? How would they have known that? Nightmare, a leak. I don't currently know but I am sure of it. If it isn't the case then why not show up to the collection on such an important shipment personally? Tsukachi, you said it yourself. This was just an extra to get rid of it was found out. Nightmare, but they would have at least sent some stronger villains to take them from 𝐻𝐼𝐴, not a mixed match of local low-level thugs who barely cold put up a fight. Even the 𝐻𝐼𝐴 people were stronger. These were last-second replacements for the original collectors. Tsukachi, fine, I have some spare people, we will 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 the locations. RD person POV. After half an hour the locations of QB and BM were duds and the heroes were about to give up on searching the location with the client doc because the radius of where 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 was growing too big. Not the fastest hero in Japan found it. An unmarked bus driving in the city, nearing the highway way above the allowed speed. The feathered hero landed on the driving bus and sent his feathers to puncture all of its tires. It stopped screeching and out jumped a short old man and 2 masked guys. The old man was dressed in a lab coat and he had glasses on. The 2 accompanying him wore black masks, white shirts and gray briefs. They looked like civilians. One had a quirk that gave him snakes for hair, though they seemed quite short. The other guy had a bunch of spikes on his body but they too were short. And where are you running to? Asked Hawks. The old man turned to the hero and cursed under his breath. This is bad. Really bad. Might you be the villain known as Document? The red-feathered hero asked as he pulled his longest feathers to use as swords. The villain casually replied while searching something in his pocket. The hero was pleasantly surprised that the guy admitted that he was a villain. He tried to see the man's face better but the 2 masked guys blocked him. Don't move. You are under arrest. The doctor just grinned at that response and pulled out a small remote and pressed a button. Trigger up, boys. You have a birdie to eat. With that the 2 grew a bit in size. The snake guy's snakes grew more than 3 times their original size. So did the spikes on the other guy. They rushed the hero in a rage-like state. He was taken aback from their sudden power-up but he was fine. The 2's eyes were bloodshot, their speed seemed a little unnatural, their hits managed to chip the concrete slightly and they didn't even flinch at the pain. As the 3 were fighting the doctor pressed another button and after a few seconds some kind of purple mist appeared and before Hawks could do anything the villain stepped in and disappeared. After Hawks finally beat the 2 thugs he called in backup. There is so much new information, the winged hero thought. Izuku POV. Him and I fed up. Not only did we fail to catch the clients but we lost several good people. I wish I could have done more but my powers have a range. I had to see where I was going and I had to listen to about 3 dozen shadows reports to make sure all was okay. I wasn't prepared enough. The enemy was a lot more violent than expected and now there is a hero 7 cops and a civilian dead. And 𝐻𝐼𝐴 was just 1 puppet organization. Otherwise there would have been more capable workers. If only I had found a better way to catch them. And I call myself a vigilante. Kakin and Mom were right. I really am useless. Now I have a lot more to do. There is still a bunch of villains who use humans for who knows what running around while I am sitting around in my room trying to find more out based on all information we have. If I don't find them soon, they will just use different traffickers and continue their plans. Tsukachi POV. Holy F. This raid was amazing. It has given us so much information. Turns out that 𝐻𝐼𝐴 had about 60% of all reported missing people within the last 10 years. Or at least a record where they were sent. We know how many people were sent to each client, and those who we caught can face trial with this proof. I guess 𝐼𝐴 overestimated how big the network is. By his explanation, 𝐻𝐼𝐴 was about 10% of the human trade in Japan, and unless we have oil tanker-sized boats filled with humans getting transported into Japan and sent to a bunch of villains monthly, we just crippled the entree market. The numbers don't lie, and we have way over half the total missing people accounted for. If we compare it with our police databases, then we can see that roughly 80% of the missing people reports have been at least semi-cleared. Of course, we haven't caught the main villains who have bought them, but it is a start. Here are a couple of other things we got out of the raid. We arrested a major cult and an A-rank villain, as well as many minor villains and groups. We found out that Queen Bee is alive. That is not good, but we thought her swarm was killed, and at least we didn't get surprised. We found out that the famous Dr. Tsubasa is a villain and set a warrant out for his arrest. The minute our men busted down his home, everything was gone, but the minute he shows his face, we can catch him. We managed to recover 2 instant villains who had some new drag called trigger injected in them via a medicinal pouch connected to their bodies like insulin bands. They had a bit of trigger still in them, so we can study it. It was a quirk-enhancing drag, but finding out how it works might give us the advantage when and if it hits the market. And we found out that the doctor is working with whoever is making this drag, or he is behind it. Furthermore, he is working with someone who has a teleportation quirk. There was also a few cars going to the docks and out of country, which makes this an international investigation, and we can bring more allies into this. Or they are going to one of our islands. Then it will be easy to find. And lastly, we uncovered that the entire mayor's office was corrupt, which led us to a whole chain of other small criminals and fund embezzlement. Turns out that the mayor is funding a decent drag ring. He is a real crackhead. While most of this seems like bad news, it is valuable information that we will be able to prepare for. These things could have taken us by surprise, and then we would be driven into a crisis. But now we know what to prepare for. We have several leads on criminals we didn't even know existed. From spots where they have been once a month for several years to their identities. One slip-up from the villains could bring us another victory. All in all, amazing results. And all thanks to 𝐼𝐴. I owe him so much. This data could save thousands, maybe millions if this whole organization is international. Once I catch him, I will get him in the Vigilante Rehabilitation Program and try to recruit him in our ranks, either as a hero or police officer. He could save so many more people if he only had access on our data. Then we can finally work together and stop these monsters. If I have to, I will force the Prime Minister to give him a pardon for the vigilantism charges. It is the least I can do to the guy who helped me, even though I tried to arrest him just days ago. Plus, he helped during the raid, and our casualties were so low for such a large operation that we managed to recover all the bodies and have proper funerals. Something truly rare in such kind of missions. Then there is also the issue that we might have some rats. So far only I, 𝐻𝐼𝐴, and the chief know. I was the only person at the phone that 𝐼𝐴 gave so, and his argument was sound. Backed up by proof when 𝐻𝐼𝐴 found the doctor. In the official report, he was just flying around to enjoy the view when he saw the speeding car and decided to help the local police by stopping it. Only to be attacked by a villain who revealed themselves as one of the targets in a fit of rage when found. I will have to set up another meeting with 𝐼𝐴. The faux POV. I will obliterate them both. That pesky vigilante and that detective that worked with him. My spies found out about the raid last minute as they were pulled into backup ranks, so Queen Bee didn't manage to receive the warning and had to flee in time and had to reveal herself. Dictator, one of my trusted killers, got caught with his little friends. And then there is the fact that the doctor got found out by pure bad luck. He had to reveal 2 of my trump cards only to get away. Now the heroes know about Trigger and 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫's existence, or at least the fact that we have a warp quirk on our side. My little pawn who helped me establish a base of operations right under. The heroes' noses also got arrested. Lastly, my biggest import of test subjects was just raided. 𝐻𝐼𝐴 was my only stable source of people. Now that I have lost them, I will have to send some of my pawns to do their jobs. That increases the chances of them getting caught. Such a headache. And the hero side barely lost anyone. It was almost like they knew every quirk my men at Hazmat had. The total of their loses was in the 20s. Such a wide raid should have costed them at least a sixth of their forces. I was counting on that. All because that so-called nightmare had a couple of animals running around and found the prisoners. Then he must have informed the detective and he formed a plan. That man is too smart and dangerous to be left alive. And the vigilante has a way to nosy quirk. While I would love to have it for myself, I know it would be safer to just take him down. I will have to make a few arrangements. Izuku POV. The detective asked for another meeting, this time face-to-face with no tricks. I have no idea how to feel about it. Last time we talked, he tried to arrest me. I was fine and managed to get a lot of blackmail info, but still. It was kinda close. Maybe he wants to tell me in person how much I fed up. I tried my best, but we still lost good people. Their BLD is on my hands. If I was better, if I had a better plan, if I knew more, they would be alive. I am useless, I am a Deku. I am a killer. He probably wants to quit so I don't end up causing more harm than good. I think that I need a week to fix my mistakes. Maybe he will cool down in the meanwhile. I can repay for the trouble by helping more. That is what I did with Mother. Anyways, now that I have the faces of the civilian forms of some heroes, I have to do a couple background checks. Reverse image search engines are great to find the heroes' real identities, but some schools don't post their graduation albums. In that case, I have to use the different social media apps. Having the civilian names is all you need when searching for old newspapers and sites. Those can be accessed in the library on the internet. That is how I found out that 𝐴𝐻𝗓𝗏 accidentally lost control over his quirk while working in the office after a client annoyed him. The end result was roughly $7,500 in damages. He had to take out a small loan. The real kicker. He was fired and was trying so hard to find a new job that he forgot to repay his loan, getting into debt. This is the reason why he is a hero. Sure, it might not be much in terms of blackmail info, but dropping this kind of knowledge about him in a fight will distract him. No one can keep their cool if someone tells them a piece of information that someone shouldn't know. Especially something so private. Currently I have about 8 heroes' personal life in my notes. And I know the names, faces, family and history of 12 officers. As far as information bombshells go, I have more than enough. On my way home from the cafe, I heard some old man yell and a younger girl reply. As I got closer, I heard words like corruption, manipulation, society, and other words I have heard in 100 villain speeches. Hearing this, I jumped into an ally and put my stuff away as I summoned my vigilante suit. It came together with my powers, so it is with me everywhere as long as I am in the darkness. So useful. It was only early evening, so I wasn't at 100% power, but I have fought in worse conditions. After I hid my stuff and made 2 shadow dogs to defend it, I exited the ally and went toward the noise. To my surprise, I found 2 familiar people standing in front of a bank. These 2 were the internet celebrates, 𝐻𝗓𝗏 and 𝐴𝐵. These 2 have been stealing from corrupt companies and have been trying to uncover their secrets. Before they could enter, I ran up to them and they noticed me. Dear viewers, it seems like we haven't even revealed these villains' crimes and someone is already here to stop us. Isn't it the famous nightmare? A vigilante that fights for justice. What do you want? 𝐻𝗓𝗏 spoke to the camera with such confidence. I had to get him alone and away from the bank. They had already pulled the silent alarm as soon as they saw him outside. I knew that the police was closing in thanks to my shadows. I couldn't let them film the next part, and I think 𝐻𝗓𝗏 couldn't afford to reveal his quirk, so I had to make it look like I wanted to fight. I made fists and put them in a boxing position. He quickly understood. I fear he is not friendly, my dear followers. We will be back once I gently get rid of this obstacle. 𝐴𝐵 cut the feed and 𝐻𝗓𝗏 raised his fists. He knew he had to fight me even if that was not my goal. It was the only way to get them both out of here. I ran at him and aligned a right kick only to meet a bouncy, barely visible wall of air. My kick was recoiled and 𝐻𝗓𝗏 had already made his next move. Jumping behind me, he was trying to encase me in more walls, but I jumped out of the trap before it was done and moved a bit closer to the darkness. Then I took a pot shot at him with one of my shadow chains from his own shadow. It wasn't meant to hurt him but keep his attention on me. It took him by surprise and he fell toward me, so I punched him in the shoulder. We continued this process until we were away from the bank and in the bad part of the city. Dodge, taunt, beat, rinse and repeat. It was 𝐻𝗫𝗄 who saw what I was doing. I was trying to tire him out. She was going to say something, so I had to send my birds to fly around her and block all sound. 𝗀𝗘 was trying his best to beat me, provoking me, but I was ignoring any and all attempts. By the time he decided to look around, it was far too late. It was dark. We were in my domain. And his teammate was gone. "What are you doing?" The man yelled. "What have you done to 𝗲𝗫𝗄?" He tried to attack me, but he was so slow that I didn't have to block. He was tired. I pulled out my note block and wrote down my thoughts. "Sorry, 𝗀𝗘, for my brutal execution, but the goal was to get you away from the police without looking like I am helping you. As for your ally, she was about to step in and I didn't want you to use your full power if we can settle this more peacefully. And why should I trust your word? Because you are not dead or arrested." I replied with a smug that he didn't see. "What is it that you want from us?" In that moment I returned back to my fanboy mode. "I am a massive fan and I was hoping you would sign my notebook." The older man literally froze for a solid minute after hearing that. I was starting to get terrified, so I let 𝗲𝗫𝗄 out in hopes that she would help him, but as soon as she was released from her little prison, she yelled how much she loved him. Just like that, the guy started to glow. I was ready for another fight, but instead I got to see an adult man cry. It was quite a scene. 𝗲𝗫𝗄 stared at me and I shrugged at his reaction before showing her the notes I showed him. Her face visibly glowed up as she too became tear-eyed. Now I had two of my idols crying. Did I do something bad? 𝗀𝗘 looked up to read my new message and reacted in the weirdest way possible. This grown but man, one of my idols, a complete stranger who I had been fighting for about an hour and somehow made cry, went up to me and gave me a hug. What the F? After a solid 3 minutes they finally collected themselves and explained their actions. Turns out, they had been struggling to show the world how evil many companies are, and they barely got any views. They tried hard to make the world better, but nothing was working. After a long and nice conversation through paper and mouth, I found out that these two amazing people just didn't cut it for hero work but still cared to change the world. These two were big on removing corruption, so I had one idea that could help. Why not work as informants for the police? Why would they hire us? The man answered with a sad undertone. Because 𝗲𝗫𝗄 has found enough data to arrest many corrupt company owners, and you have the experience to fight criminals and heroes equally. Someone as great as you two could be fantastic heroes. And you haven't done any major crimes. If you work hard enough, you could be pardoned. Then why don't you work for them? You are so much better suited for such work. He answered with confusion. I stopped. I knew the answer, but it stung. I was avoiding thinking about it, acting like it was just a dream. But it was all real. I already screwed up. A mission I planned backfired, and a hero, 7 officers and a civilian are dead. As soon as he read that, the man looked at me with sad eyes and apologized for the sensitive question. The mood was dead, just like me and the victims of my F-up. But the duo took my advice. As they were going, I gave them my number and my new name. See you soon, Kage. 𝗬𝗏𝗄𝐻 POV. I finally finished my crazy shift and I was about to leave when out of nowhere the silent alarm went off. Grabbing my gun belt and putting my backup in my leg holster, I ran toward the stairs. There I met 𝗀𝗧𝗟 and several other officers. Guns in hand, we walked down. There I saw a weird scene. 2 of the strongest criminals this part of Japan were at the entrance, hands above their heads and turning themselves in. We have been trying to catch 𝗀𝗘 and his companion for months. These 2 have avoided us so long that I half expected them to never be caught. Every time some hero tries to fight them, the hero ends up beat up and their hopes crushed. The duo might not have killed anyone, but the damage is still bad. So seeing these 2 was a pleasant surprise. Lowering our guns, I went to arrest both. Then they were brought into interrogation. RD person POV. The detective cleared his throat, pulled out a pen and opened the file designed for the criminal before starting the interview. "So, Mr. Danjuro, why have you chosen to hand yourself over?" The opposing man looked at the detective with eyes full of hope. He was fiddling with his quirk cancelling 𝐻𝐿𝐷𝐶FFS, but after a short silence he answered, "I have placed myself into custody because a good man gave me the advice that if I want to continue my dream, I will have to do it working for the law, not against it. He was right, and I hope to make a deal with the police." This took the officer aback as he didn't expect such a bold answer, but he quickly composed himself and wrote down some things. "So, what kind of deal do you want to make? Currently your prison sentence is just short of 40 years. I understand the consequences of my actions, but I have information that might help with my case. Furthermore, if the police were willing to work together, I am willing to move under surveillance as long as I can achieve my goal. I have a useful quirk that I am willing to use for the greater good. As for my partner, she could help you with your cybersecurity. We are willing to do anything that will shorten our sentences so we can do what is right," the criminal said with newfound confidence. The police officer liked the way this conversation was going. La Brava had hacked major banks and databases known to be protected by people with tech quirks, possibly a top 10 hacker of Japan. And Gentle has escaped fights against 10 pro heroes and police. Besides, it is very versatile. Having him on raids could save even more lives. But to let criminals join the police would take some convincing. Maybe if he knew their goal with this, he would believe that they wanted to help. Tsukachi thought. "You keep saying that you have a goal. What is it?" In that moment Danjuro grinned. He had waited for this exact question. The man knew better than anyone how truly corrupt the world was. Stopping this corruption was his goal. Being a failed hero forced him to turn to crime. His dream to be remembered was so close yet so far. He had to show the world his worth. Now he had a chance to do it the legal way. "My goal is to stop the corruption this world harbors. I want to be remembered as the man who helped better the world. We need to mend our world and save it from those who are destroying it. If we fight together, I am sure we can stop the villains that hide away." These words reminded the detective of the hazmat raid. Corruption was a beast hidden in plain sight, and it was killing humanity. Villains who are protected by money, fame, or status. Knowing that his own ranks had the same kind of monster in them made his gut twist. Nightmare was right. He knew that there was no reason for the villains to expect the attack, yet they did not arrive. They had been warned. Had they not found the doctor, then he would not be suspicious of every other officer. He would be able to sleep at nights. Now he had potential allies to stop the same kind of monsters that had ruined his trust for his own comrades. It was a deal he couldn't refuse, or he would hate himself for the rest of his life. After a long silence he finally talked again. "I like your resolve and goal. If I can get my superiors to agree, then we might be able to recruit you." With that, the first interview ended and his other one went similarly. Tsukachi POV. I had finished the paperwork about the two criminals and sent it to my higher-ups. They were sent to prison in the meanwhile. The entire day had been nothing but paperwork. It was tiring, my eyes started to hurt and my wrist was sore after 10 straight hours of writing. All I wanted was sleep. And food. My lunch had to be skipped due to all of the work. I was really looking forward to dinner. So you can imagine my annoyance when I got a message from Nightmare to meet him in the evening in a darker part of town. Great, now I won't be able to sleep at all. If he actually wants to talk, then he probably has discovered something bad. At least he is still willing to meet after my failed attempt to catch him last time. But he learned. He is the one who chose the location, but this time he didn't account for my comfort. No sitting in a bar 10 minutes away from my job. I will have to take the train. Instantly after work. So no dinner. At least the guy answered my plea to meet in person. So that was precisely what I did. After I had packed up, I clocked out and went straight to the train station. With me I had a weapon and the phone Nightmare gave me, as well as my personal phone. With nothing more, I exited the train and walked through the empty, dark streets. Well, not completely empty. There were dozens of shadow animals walking around. This was the nastiest part of town. I have been called here hundreds of times, but ever since he started patrolling, not many tried something dumb. I guess these animals were meant to deter all troublemakers. They seemed to follow me with their eyes, sizing me up like I was going to kill their boss but then giving up realizing I had no shot. I couldn't even blame them. He has an infinite army of shadow animals as long as he is in the darkness. He can also teleport. And as far as we know, he has some kind of super durability. Muscular's punches can break concrete walls and he tanked one. Plus all the weapons. Made from darkness, he has an endless supply of blades, chains and who knows what. There probably is more that we don't know. If the Hero Commission decided to fight him, then we would need 𝗀𝐻𝐵's entire agency, eraser and every light source in the country. By the time I had arrived to the chosen location, I had seen all kinds of uses for the shadows. One dog stood by the crossroad with a storage vest. When an old man arrived to the crossroad, he put his shopping bags in the pouches of the vest. And the dog crossed the road with the man while having the groceries on him. Similarly, a young man was jogging and next to him was a cat that had a water bottle strapped to its back. And many more little things. I had to remember that this was one of the worst parts of town and it was late evening, otherwise I would have moved into this resort in a heartbeat. Walking down the stairs I heard quiet party music. Opening the door I was greeted by a few mild lights and like 40 people. It smelled like chlorine, petrol and alcohol. It was surrounded by mist, gas and smoke of every color. Probably quirks. At the door I was greeted by a large man who had a gas mask. He also had a box of several more gas masks. Not knowing what the effects of these gases, I decided to take one. Even if it was some elaborate trap to make me put on the gas mask, I remembered Midnight's quirk and chose not to risk my health. After I put it on, the man walked me through the party. Everyone was wearing a gas mask, but weirdly no one had an oxygen tank, me included. Probably the courtesy of someone's quirk. I was finally led to a door in the back of the club. As we walked through, all of the fumes vanished into thin air. The room was slightly dark, as expected. There sat the nightmare. He had several shadow animals surround him. He lacked a gas mask, but he still had a cloth one. I wasn't sure if it was because he was hiding his face or there still were some vapors in the air. Or both. Without turning to look at me, I was signed to sit opposite of him. The man who scritted me walked back out the door before I reached my chair. I sat down on the old bar chair and put my hands on the old oak table that was covered with a red tablecloth. It had 7 candles lit in a circle and a phone on the middle of the table. Nightmare had a keyboard on his side of the table. Probably connected to the phone wirelessly. For a solid 3 seconds we sat in silence and the light of the candles. His eyes were staring in my soul, dissecting my every move. It was creepy to say the least. Then his hands touched the keyboard and in a moment he had typed his first words. And as soon as he pressed enter, a mechanical voice came from the phone. "Detective, thank you for arriving. Good to see that you took our complimentary masks. Otherwise, the effects could be unpredictable. Though this room is safe with breathable air. You can take it off. If you wish, that is." Even though I couldn't see his face, the way he told me to remove the mask seemed very down to earth. Like he was trying to show me he wasn't commanding me, rather giving a suggestion. So I took it off and felt the felling of fresh air. My lungs really liked that. I felt pressure release that I didn't even know I had. For a second I contemplated if he was using some muscle-relieving gas to stop me from moving. But that seemed unlikely. Why invite me just to knock me out? If he wanted to kidnap me, there were easier ways. For example, he could. The same voice from before cut me out of my thoughts. "I apologize for stopping your train of thought, but I just want to tell you that my invitation was so we can discuss our last meeting. He probably wants to cut ties or find a way where we never have to be in the same room again." I did try to arrest him. I bit my tongue and forced myself to answer with a calm voice. "I apologize for the little fiasco, but it is part of the job to catch vigilantes. Hope you still plan to cooperate with us. Your help was very useful." As soon as I said that, Nightmare's eyes went big. He made no moves or noises, but the change of pupil size, breathing and the short moment before he went back to typing suggested he was surprised. If I had to guess, he didn't like my ask to work together after I essentially betrayed him. That was not what I meant, but we can return to that later. Currently, I have a suggestion for you. The part of our last talk I was referencing was my question. The question about trust. You said trust is really important, so I am here to build some degree of trust between us. Professional trust, if you will. To work together in the future, I am willing to play a game. We each answer the other's 7 questions, as long as they are not about my true identity, home, or allies. I am not ready to be taken in. If you ask the right questions, you will be able to learn all you need, but similarly, you will have to expose your own strengths and weakness. It is a game of wits, but seeing how you are detective, I am sure you will manage. So, tell me, detective. Want to play? I was in a tough position. Revealing things about myself to a criminal who could kill me could massively backfire at me, but it could help catch him or work together. A true test of courage that I can't refuse. I'm in perfect. I'll start. Question 1. What is your opinion on those with villainous quirks and quirkless people? This question I was asked 1,000 times before by criminals. Or at least the first part. Many tried to defend their actions by using their quirks as excuses. Quirkless people, on the other hand, are a different situation. I haven't really interacted with many of them, but they seem normal. Quirks aren't villainous. Sure, some can be used for evil, but they do not make you do evil things. In the end, it is the human who is a villain. You can choose to use your quirk for both evil and good. Those who choose to use their quirks for evil because they have so-called evil quirks are the evil ones. As for quirkless people, they are people just like most. Nowadays, there are barely any of them left, but it makes them not less human as the rest of the world. Thank you for the answer. Now it was my turn to ask him something, and I knew exactly what I wanted to know. Something that was nagging me ever since he started appearing on the streets. Why not talk? Seems overly cautious. The man sitting across me froze for a second. A sigh escaped him. Then the typing returned. You could say, an incident robbed me of my voice. I ask you not to pry deeper, it is a negative memory. So he is mute, not overly careful to not get recognized by his voice. I nodded and with that nightmare put 2 of his fingers over the candle's exposed part and pressed together. The flame went out. The gloves must have guarded his fingers poorly as I smelled slightly burned flesh. Question 2. What do you think about this location? The surrounding territory has been beautifully cleaned up thanks to you. Though as a man of the law, I can't ignore the obvious crime of using your quirk in a public place without a license. I see. Thank you for your input, but I think that sometimes the law hinders progress. That is why I break it. To help people even if my help is not wanted by the law because I know that the people are thankful for it. Fair enough. Now for my question. What is this place? Simple. This place is meant to help those who suffer because they can't use their quirks. There are people who have quirk drawbacks if they do not use their powers. There are quirks that can endanger others if used even in private property, as it might not be customized for them. For example, if an electricity quirk user used their quirk at home, they might fry all electronics because the family couldn't afford to make a room out of RBB. So this bar is meant as a safe space for those who need to let loose. The owner is a nice young man I made a deal with. He has been making group parties for each kind of quirks. In the meantime, there is the option to reserve a room such as this one. And since this is private property, no laws are broken. He made this place a reality after his big brother died of his own stockpile quirk that he lost control over to help those who need it. Sometimes this place is a rage room, a room without metal, electronics, a garden, and so much more. Sadly, he was lacking funding and living in the worst part of town. He couldn't get many clients, but when I found out his goal, I funded his dream. Now the guests' entry fees make him a nice profit, and he even gives me a cut. In return, I get him the more difficult things to get. Like these gas masks. Quirk enhanced and sold only in one place. I only got them a few days ago. It is a great dream he has, and I am happy that he managed to fulfill it. If you want to speak with him, he is currently in the party. For the first time, he can let his own quirk run wild. It is a massive celebration. Ask for a mustard, he'll be there. Wow, that is a lot of information. I will talk to him later. And just like that, the second candle lost its flame. Third question, what is your quirk, detective? So we moved from ethical questions to strengths and weaknesses. I guess I too will have to move to business. It is a truth-telling quirk. I answered with the least amount of information I could with the goal to waste another one of his questions. Of course he noticed what I was doing, so I got a reply really quickly. I see. I took the short answer as a sign to ask my question. How does your quirk work? I can bend the darkness to do as I please. It can take any shape, move around, and much more. Without another word uttered, the room got even darker as another flame vanished. How much do you know about me? He didn't ask more about my quirk. But this was the one thing I feared he might ask. As a man of my word, I was bound to answer his question. But telling him the truth could be bad. All of our progress could be lost here. Though there was not a lot anyways. I am about to give him a trump card. We know your rough strength estimate, intelligence, and we have roughly evaluated to be a S-rank threat if you turn to villainy. But we also know about your weakness to light, which we will use if you choose to bare your fangs against us. Such a truthful answer. Good to see that you keep your word, detective. Now for my question. How did you know of our trap when we last met? My shadows might not have been able to survive in the parking spots or the mall rooms, but the roads and many shelves, boxes, and many more objects have shadows. If you know where to find darkness, then you know it is everywhere. And I know where the darkness is. After all, even those who stand directly under the sun are chained down to the world by their shadows. With the last words, another source of light went out, covering us both in more darkness. Fifth question. Who is responsible for making sure no one knows the real identities of the heroes? The heroes themselves. Well, we did have to sign legal papers that we cannot reveal a hero's true identity given to us by the Hero Commission, but if there aren't any guards to actively shove NDAs in every person's face who saw the real identity of some hero. I see. The hell does that mean? Before properly ignoring that response to concentrate on our little game. How wide is your information network? We have seen how many shadows you have, so I am sure you know a lot. But how much? Every street in the city and surrounding towns are being watched. My shadows keep of private property because I respect basic human decency, so I won't know about a meth lab in someone's basement until they take the product out of the house. As for my friends, I know all I need and no more. It is a trade of information, so you don't waste favors or useful knowledge for unnecessary things. Money is nice, but the good stuff is connections only. Which I don't lack. And out went the fifth flame. It was getting uncomfortably dark. Second to last question. How many people know that you are here? No one. I replied, maybe a tad bit too quickly. Sorry, could you repeat that? Was his reply. This time I thought for a minute. I knew he heard me and probably just didn't believe me. But it was already too late. I arrived alone without telling anyone. His whole body language changed. Before he seemed a bit stiff, but his whole body relaxed. I thought you took my challenge to try better seriously. I half expected you to bring some officer out of country who could make people invisible and arrest me with an army of invisible heroes and cops. His overreaction told me that he was really scared before. Like, if he was awaiting an ambush, then why did he seem so calm before? Why did you expect such a thing to happen? Is that your sixth question? Only then I realized my mistake. Never mind. My sixth question is, why couldn't we find you in our databases? Your quirk seems unique, but it hasn't shown up in any database. I was a misdiagnosed and haven't been in the hospital ever since I was 4. That explains his missing quirk from the databases, but how is he still alive after not being in the hospital ever since being 4? And the sixth candle was out. Left with only one source of light, I could barely see Nightmare's masked face. Last question, what is the purpose of our meeting? If you are planning on taking me in for my crimes right now, then don't sugarcoat it. What? I mean, arresting this guy was important, but him being so open about it. I wasn't planning to arrest you today. You have done so much good so you could get into the vigilante rehab program we have. Then you could legally help us out and help by becoming a hero. You could probably have a pardon and full record wipe for all the victims your plan saved. He stopped once again, and I could only hope he was considering my proposal. Sadly, all I got was a confused look, then his eyebrows scrunched in a frown. I ask you to stop jesting, detective. We both know that killers don't belong among heroes. I will be the first one to admit it. I was terrified. Just found out the guy I was trying to recruit was a killer. And he said admitted to a crime that I didn't know he committed so casually. I became very self-aware of my situation. He knows I am alone with no one knowing my location. All I have is a gun and we both know he can heal as soon as he steps in the dark. And make weapons. In that moment I also realized that the whole room was really dark and if the last candle went out he would be probably unkillable. Though my curiosity took the better of me. What do you mean killer? Have you killed someone? The police officers, eel boy and one civilian were killed because my plan wasn't good enough and I didn't consider all variables. It was my plan and people died because of it. Their BLD is on my hands. I let out the breath I was holding. Does he really blame himself for not predicting the future? No, you didn't kill them. Those were the smallest losses we have ever had for such a large operation. If anything, you set a record for least deaths for a massive operation. After I said those words, I saw several tears flow down his face before they soaked up in the mask. A minute later he stood up and typed something. Thank you, detective. Call me Tsukachi. We have built trust, so call me by my name. In that case, please call me Kage. With that the last candle went out and when I finally got to the light 𝗧𝗑𝐵 she was long gone. I put on my gas mask and went out of the party to get some food and go home. Bakugu POV. I was going home from school like any other day, going under a bridge when I realized that I had taken a wrong turn and ended up on a longer route to home. I planned to turn around but I didn't mind the longer walk so I stayed on course. The old hag wouldn't complain about me getting some more fresh air. She keeps telling me to be more outside anyways. Not turning back around was my first mistake. My second was noticing but ignoring the weirdly growing vines. I thought that it was some gardener illegally using their quirk. Nope. Turns out some villain was using his quirk to take me hostage while running from some heroes. And my last mistake was biting the first vines that held me as the next ones had thorns. It wasn't that bad but the BSTRD using them was most likely using them to put some drag in my system because everything was wobbly and I was starting to see things that were clearly not there. A hero who turned the corner became a marshmallow and I saw a flamingo walk across the road. Whatever this guy did, I am high to the moon. We must have moved a lot or I was even higher than I realized because after a while I smelled the ocean. Then a massive wave of heat rushed down my body. It was like someone was burning me alive. The pain cleared the drag out of my system. I saw the reason why I felt so hot. It was 𝗏𝗏𝗏. He must have come to save me, but his heat was hurting me as well. I started screaming. The villain did the same. Then he jumped in the cold water with me. And all the pain stopped. I must not have been burned but only felt the heat. The vines let me go and I surfaced for air. I saw Dagobah Beach in flames, 𝗏𝗏𝗏 and his sidekick standing by the water, waiting for the villain. The guy in question was screaming in pain. When I turned to see him, all I saw was a man with a charred body, slightly melted skin. His face was still slightly melting. In many parts of his body he was brown or black, looking like a piece of charcoal. Many vines were coming out of his back like some tentacle freak. Most of them were burned stubs. But his vines that seemed the least hurt were those that held me. In that moment I registered how big the gap was between me and the burned man. He had thrown me away from the fire. He had saved me from the number 2 hero. By the time I swam to him, his cries had died down and the surrounding water was turning red and black. He was dead. He was killed by 𝗏𝗏𝗏 who almost killed me too. After that wake-up call I promptly blacked out. Waking up in a hospital bed was not on my bucket list but here I was. Bright lights, the smell of medicine and that beeping that said I was alive. I sat up and took in my condition. Or I tried to do that. I learned the hard way that any and all movement would be painful as F. After waiting for a minute, a doctor walked in my room. He gave me some medicine that he said I needed for the fever I had and then let in some guy. He introduced himself as a detective and he explained what happened and asked me some questions about the villain. Turns out, the flames did reach me in the start and I got some first-degree burns on my back as well as a second-degree burn on my left hand since the flame itself reached me. For some reason the villain had blocked the attack from reaching me as much as he could so all my wounds would heal. With time. Then the cold water saved me from further damage and the reason why the pain disappeared was because the guy who took me injected me with a pain-numbing drag after I had reached the water. Turns out it was his last real action if you don't count the screaming till death. What the F? Izuku POV. I was just chilling in the cafe, drinking a coffee that was darker than the abyss I have seen. Just the way I like it. Then a homeless-looking man walked through the door. Though based on the way he moved, there was no way he was a bum. Very move was calculated and precise. Maybe a villain or underground hero. Probably hero based of the confidence he carried in public. Villains don't have that usually. He looked around, probably searching for a nice place to sit at before his eyes landed on me. I knew that look. It was something like childish envy. Like I took the last candy from a shop. Nothing serious but just enough to show his true intentions. Without saying a word obviously I pulled my stuff from the couch and under the table as I motioned for him to sit. He had a face of gratitude as he nodded and walked over to my table. He sat down and sighed deeply. Now looking closer, he had the biggest eye bags I had ever seen and his unshaved face told me all I needed to know. Either a tired dad or teacher. Or both. Thanks kid. I really needed a dark corner after today. Mood, no problem. I signed. He raised an eyebrow at my sign language but after a minute he responded. Sorry. My ASL is a bit rusty but thanks a lot again. I was happy to have someone beside the waitress here to talk with without using some form of writing. Not many people know sign language, so having a conversation like this was nice. He looked at me and then my stuff. I was wearing a simple pair of jeans and a black t-shirt. On the table had my book about quirk history open. Then he saw my coffee. And for the first time I saw the hobo hero confused. Like really confused. What's that drink? I have never seen coffee so dark. I felt that. This was the darkest coffee in the city. I would know. I searched. It just happened to be that my favorite cafe was the one selling this heavenly drink. I don't even need coffee as long as I sit in the darkness, but because I keep on forgetting to sleep while at home because I don't need it, my life in the light is one of sleep deprivation. It is a masterpiece. A total of 12 shots of espresso. With that amount you can fight God or die trying. The man stared at me like I had just told him I was actually drinking from the Holy Grail. Which I might as well have been. No way that is legal or safe. Was all he said. Do you care? 'Cause I don't. I have been drinking from the fountain of youth and it is heaven. Especially when I don't have enough sleep. Besides, there is a waiver you have to receive this illegal elixir. It took some time to process my slightly harder signs but I think he got the gist because he just shrugged, said fair and ordered the same thing I had. Then he signed the papers saying that the cafe was not liable for any medical issues after consumption. When it arrived the man took one sip and his eyes dilated. I think he found euphoria as he smiled and downed the entire cup in the next gulp. The steaming hot, just brewed liquid. I think he burned the pain receptors of his mouth and throat. But to be fair, when I first drank it, I had the same reaction. Only I had the shadows to heal it. Let's hope he knows someone with a healing quirk. After he got of his caffeine high I gave him my best smile, and he smiled back. I think he needed that a lot more than I thought. Then we had a lovely conversation. It mostly started with why I was willing to talk to a stranger and me explaining that I am a good judge of character. Then he told me he was a teacher at UA named 𝗧𝗱𝗧𝗟. Then it came to the topic of my name. Despite being alive for half a year, I had barely needed a name before so I didn't really have an identity. The few times the question did come up I said 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. My fifth name is very popular so it is common and Kage might seem a bit on the nose but it is pronounced differently and spelled with different kanji. But really, the list of people who know this name is so short that I am not worried that someone finds out I don't exist. If questions appear about me being outside while I should be in school, I just say I attend online school because of my muteness. In reality, I have joined a free online school, where you have to complete work digitally and send it because I had no real identity or parents for conferences. The school is easy and no one checked my identity. I also don't have to do tests in person. In short, an easy way to keep up and not fall behind my studies. Plus the library helps. They have all textbooks for all grades. My parents work long shifts but we are quite well off. So when I am gone for a longer time it is because we went on vacation. That also explains the more expensive things I have bought from the underground work. Mostly just a lot of electronics. A good computer, an okay laptop, phone, and a pair of red headphones. I never spend too much money, but these things are needed for my vigilantism and civilian look. For clothes, I have 3 different hoodies, orange, red, and blue, as well as a few jackets. Several different breeds and 2 pairs of shoes. Plus my vigilante costume, but that is my quirk. My fake identity has a simple quirk. I call it vital knowledge. I can slightly increase my IQ by sacrificing my energy. If I don't have much energy, I can use my body's reserves. It explains why I am so thin and my eye bags I have. I look like I haven't slept for months, which is true, but I can blame it on my quirk, which is also true. To really sell it, I have planned to get myself a fake ID but haven't gotten that far. Anyways, knowing that Mr. Izuku was a teacher in a hero school meant that he was a hero like I thought. And from all the fights I watched of a hero named Eraserhead, I connected the dots. I wouldn't have connected at all if he wasn't wearing his hero costume, just without a few details like the glasses or scarf as his civilian clothing. Now that he gave his real identity to me, I could research his history. He then proceeded to rant about how his class were taking it all way too lightly and how most of them lacked the talent they needed to cut it. After a solid hour of talking, he took his 3rd super coffee to go and went home in a much better mood. 𝐶𝐿 Izuku POV. Today I found heaven and its angel. The cafe that sells coffee stronger than every other place I have tried had a young boy who looked about 12 years old. The boy was so nice and well-mannered. He was the one to introduce me to coffee that can make me hate my job less. And that smile. It could cure any wound. Sadly, the sweet angel is mute. Why must the world be so cruel? I can only imagine how much hippiness he could spread if he talked. For the first time, I was happy to have learned sign language. I never would have if it wasn't for my dear cockatoo being so loud during a fight once that he hurt his own ears and went partially deaf for a year straight. During that year, he didn't hear himself as much and became even louder than normal, using his quirk without feeling it. In result, he was starting to do a lot more property damage, and Nizu suggested learning sign language to not break all our windows, vases, and my eardrums. I, of course, also learned it to support him. Then we found a doctor who could help with ear issues with his quirk. Since then, I think I have never used my sign language knowledge. Well, till today. And I am so glad I did. I could see the kid's face light up when I didn't tell him to please write the things he was saying. He probably doesn't have many people that understand him. Izuku POV. After my little talk with Tsukachi and Eraser, I found myself not doing anything. Sure, I did train, gather information in the underworld, and do my patrols, but I lacked any major events in my life. Dabi didn't find any troubling individuals, and I didn't run into any highly dangerous criminals. Hell, I didn't even run into any heroes who would ask me for help. All I did was my little fights with the weak criminals and meet Mr. Izuku. We have actually bonded. He tells me about his class and likes to help me with my studies. As a hero, he is a nice guy, and as a teacher, he is strict but in a fatherly way. It was quiet on the streets, yet I felt off. I had a gut feeling that a storm was brewing. 1 week went by and nothing. Another week went by and still nothing. A whole month went by and still nothing. Then a second. Then a 3rd month went by. It felt like the villain society went quiet after the information about the raid spread. The heroes felt it. The police felt it. The Hero Commission felt it. The villains felt it. The information brokers felt it. I felt it. Only lowly thugs and civilians acted like normal. I guess they didn't feel it. The calm before the storm. Bakugo POV. It was a warmer day and I was just going home from my training. Ever since I was saved by that villain, I have been throwing myself into training. More specifically, cleaning that beach. That stupid beach where he died. That trashy beach where he died. I was planning to finish my work tomorrow, but today was such a shitty day that I stayed longer and cleaned the last pile up. When I reached roughly the halfway point of my walk, I heard running footsteps behind me. After my last villain encounter, I was on edge, but having a guy run at me top speed and try to kill me without warning can take anyone by surprise. The guy's arm turned into a massive spike and he tried to impale me. It was only because I was already on edge that I managed to dodge his attack. It did, however, cut my left arm, just under the shoulder, where I was burned by the NR2 hero. It hurt like a beach and I yelled in pain. Then this 𝐻𝐻 turned around and went for a second strike. He got way too close before the blur in my eyes from the pain subsided and I had no time to dodge. So I did the desperate thing. I tried to catch his hand/spear so he wouldn't reach my vitals, but when the attack should have crushed my hand, nothing happened. The pain never came, so I looked at what was going on. What I saw made my heart race. There were the same chains I had seen so often when he was filmed. The chains I had hoped to see for so long, all wrapped around my failed killer, holding him back. His eyes were filled with fear. Then he finally yelled, or more like screamed like a little bitch. No, 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 no. No to the thing, no. Not you. Please, no. In response, there was a growling. I heard it and turned back to see two big dogs behind me ready to pounce on this idiot. He put his hands behind his back and went on his knees and let the chains tie him completely up. As I watched the events happen, I started to feel a tightness in my chest. I guess the adrenaline stopped and I started hyperventilating. I was having a panic attack. I was sobbing. The pain in my hand where he cut me felt horrible. I could barely see and I almost fell. Before I could though, something soft jumped in my arms. It took me so much by surprise that it pulled me out of my panic attack. As my vision cleared, I saw a completely black rabbit in my arms with cute white eyes. It was burying itself deeper against my chest and it really helped. I focused so much on the ball of fluff that I didn't even notice the owner of these animals and chains arrive. When I did notice him, I remembered the thing I wanted to do. I walked up to the Nightmare and tapped him on the shoulder. He turned around and looked at me. Mr. Nightmare, thank you for saving me. I am like your biggest fan. I had hoped to meet you one day, just not like this. The way you beat Muscular was so cool. He looked like a beach after that. And how you just saved me from that idiot without fighting proves how strong you are. Can I please get your signature? And maybe a picture? He looked a bit surprised at first, probably not having met many fans before, but he took out a piece of paper and wrote something. I thought he was writing his signature, but when he showed it to me, it had a question. That is a lot of BLD you are losing. Are you okay? I was confused at first, but then I realized it. From all of the excitement of meeting my idol, I forgot about that cut in my arm. My entire hoodie's left arm was drenched in BLD and several drops had reached the floor. Like some Looney Tunes character, the moment someone pointed out my wound, I started to feel its effects. Black dots started popping up and I was dropping unconscious. That was the last thing I said before the BLD loss made me drop. Izuku POV. I was doing my rounds, stopping some thugs from robberies when one of my birds told me there was a guy with a quirk that turns his hand into a spear. He was running at some kid like a maniac and he was probably going to attack him, so I ran over there. The kid had dodged the first attack barely but still got wounded. The second attack I stopped just in the nick of time and called upon my friends to back the victim up. The criminal started yelling no like he was terrified of me and surrendered. The kid was hyperventilating, probably from panic, so while taking care of the attempted killer I made a rabbit appear. I have found out that fluffy animals help reduce panic, so when I save children, rabbits, cats and other cute animals are a given. I was tying this guy up when the kid tapped me on the shoulder. When I turned around I finally got a good look at him. Then I saw the details. The spiky blonde hair and those red eyes. The same eyes that looked down at me with such hate. I fell into silent panic. Kacchans. Why is he here? What if he recognizes me? What if he knows I didn't stay dead? 100 questions went through my head. I must have froze for quite a while because when I finally got out of my trance he was asking me for an autograph. That was when I remembered that I didn't look like 𝐒𝐮𝐿. He is dead and I have a mask and hood. Hell, I am not even quirkless. I looked at him and he looked like he was expecting something. Right, the autograph. I was going to answer, but then I saw the puddle of BLD forming around Kacchans' arm, so I wrote down my question. That is a lot of BLD you are losing. Are you okay? In that moment I realized how dumb that question was. Kacchans was bleeding out and probably didn't feel it from the adrenaline. I was ready to send a text to 𝐬𝐿 when I heard a yell. Now the guy was falling down and I caught him. Using my shadows I teleported to my home and took some bandages. I applied pressure while also contacting the detective. With one ping and telling him to bring an ambulance, all was ready. I kept stabilizing Kacchans so he doesn't die while waiting. My shadows told me that help was going to arrive in 5 minutes, but he was losing way too much BLD for me to leave. I had to tie a tourniquet just so he wouldn't die, but by the time the doctors arrived he was stable. As soon as I saw their lights I planned to leave, but suddenly, without warning, I felt a massive spike of pain in my stomach. Looking down, I saw pieces of my small intestines stuck on a bloody spear. Then it was forcefully ripped out of me. I saw a large pool of BLD gushing out of me as I became dizzy. Black dots started to fill my vision. I half stumbled toward the dark, away from the street lights before dropping on my knees. So I crawled for about half a meter till I reached a dumpster, a trail of BLD and spilling organs following me. I finally sat in the dark, but it didn't heal me much. SHT, it isn't dark enough. The most this does is slowly shut the wound, but I will bleed long out before it closes completely. And of course my animals have to be too far away to make a dome. And not enough power to make new ones. Am I going to die again? I was starting to lose my vision while trying to teleport using my quirk and the little darkness the dumpster gave, probably only running on adrenaline to not black out from the pain. By the time I finally managed to concentrate on teleporting, I was almost dead again. Then the location changed. I was with my back against a brick wall, hands all bloody from trying to cover the wound. My clothes were soaked in my own BLD. I looked around for the first time since teleporting here. 𝐴 a lot darker than the shadow of the dumpster. But was it dark enough for me to heal? No, and all went dark. 𝐶𝐶 POV. We arrived at the scene to see a man with recognizable black chains wrapped around him. Though many of them were already broken and he seemed to continue to do so. His hands were quite long spears. One was bloody, most likely from the boy who had a tourniquet wrapped around his left arm. Despite the fact the criminal was about to escape his bindings and there was a wounded victim, Kage was nowhere to be seen. That is so unlike him. I thought my team made their way toward the criminal as his last chains broke. He rushed at us with bloodshot eyes and his quirk active, trying to impale anyone. We dodged, and where I was standing mere seconds ago was a small crater in the concrete. He seemed to have quite the strong quirk. I pulled out my taser and hit him in the leg. Pressing the button, I delivered 1500 volts to give him muscle contractions and stop him, but took the hit and just cut the wires off with his spear hands. Then he started to rush at me again, about to make another attack, but 𝐶𝐮𝐬 saw this and shot the man in the leg. That might have saved my life. I quickly used the moment he fell on the floor and put quirk-canceling cuffs on his hands. The spears retracted. The pain must have finished the job because he was out cold. The paramedics were able to finally reach the kid, and they also checked out the criminal. I took a break after the crazy guy was treated and put in the back of my car. As I took a breather, my eyes wandered around the crime scene. They landed on one spot further away from the rest. Walking closer, I saw it was another puddle of BLD with meaty pieces. Looking closer, it was parts of an organ. It looked like a part of the small intestine had been cut off and dropped on the floor. With it bone chips, parts of skin and muscle. The BLD made a trail to behind a garbage dumpster not far away. There was a second pile. I have a bad feeling about this. Katsuki Bakugo POV. Waking up to hospital lights again was not nicer than the first time. The same hand hurt like a beach, the smell and bright lights still 𝐶𝐿. The beeping was the same, like it never stopped. Waiting for a doctor to come in, I tried to remember all that happened. My training, the walk, the psychopath with the spear hands, and then the cut. The pain, and then I remembered the chains, the animals, the bunny in him. I remembered my meeting with my idol and asking him for an autograph and signature before he asked me if I was okay. But the wound. The freak cut me deeply and I lost a lot of BLD, lastly the fall. But I couldn't remember the landing, and it seemed like I missed how I got here and if he even gave me a signature. Probably no picture either. After all my thoughts and a lot more time, the doctor finally walked in. He told me I was in bad shape before the medical personnel reached me. I had bled almost to death and I should count myself lucky for surviving the attack. Once again, the same detective came to interview me and explain some things. Long story short, the nightmare saved my butt from bleeding out and then got the hell out of there so he wouldn't get caught. But apparently the villain managed to escape his chains and hurt the vigilante. So he had to teleport away to heal and left me in the hands of the police. I felt bad for taking his attention away to the point he didn't notice the guy getting out and managing to stab him, but the guy has super regeneration in the dark and it was late. He is probably fine. Izuku POV. I have been falling. No idea for how long, seeing how time is weird here. All I know is that no voices or animals are around, just like at the start of my new life. I went through the whole hot and cold feeling mix already. When I just sleep I end up with my shadows and less falling, more floating, but this. It is like I died again. Great, I double died. I have no idea if I will stay dead or not, but only time will tell. Maybe if I fall long enough my friends will return. I don't like this type of falling. It has been way too long since I have had company. The least I think so. Time is still weird here. At least I had time to process what the F happened. The villain. The last second entrance. The meeting with Katsuki. The spear in my gut. My organs spilling out and me trying to survive only to obviously fail. I wonder, did Tsukachi manage to arrive before I died and my chains fell? If not, is Bakugo alive? Or if they did, is he still fine? After who knows how long, time is weird here. I finally started hearing the voices. But unlike the first time, they are deeper, rougher and louder. They didn't belong to the small crows, mice, cats and puppies with one or two larger animal among them. No, they belonged to animals much louder. Massive eagles circled me as bobcats and cheetahs made their way toward me. Behind them were dogs the size of Great Danes. Additionally, there were a lot of coyote and ferrets. It seems that my shadows essentially grew in size and strength. Now the only question is if I can come back alive to use that strength. I tried to command the darkness once more, but no luck. The animals seemed more violent, more rageful. It felt like they awaited something before accepting me in their world. It was both annoying and expected. If a quirk evolves, then it happens only after an important event. Last time I had to control a dragon, then this evolution will take even more effort than last time. I have to take control of the one who rules this darkness. After a normal time here that might be weird for anyone outside, I finally met the man of this house. If the dragon is the ruler of skies, he is weak to the MSTR of another domain if in said monster's domain. Eyes the size of my entire body, scales so dark, barely visible, and gills big enough to let through lions. Whatever this beast hunts must be the size of an elephant. It was the Leviathan, a beast that resembles a whale and serpent combination. Again, don't think any religion covered these things after death. And unless this is my personal hell, haven't seen anyone else. If it is my personal hell, then it is DMN bad at torturing me. It looked at me like no more than mere prey, but I was ready. So what? Big scary animal of fiction. Big deal. A beast 1,000 times larger than me still is only a mere animal in light or dark. I see no reason to be afraid. I have not suffered any pain, and the most this thing has done is give me nightmares if I ever get out of here. But fear can only keep a man at bay. There is a reason why we know what is poisonous or venomous. We know what is dangerous and what is safe because someone tested it. I don't fear death since I am, well, dead. All I have to do is command the beast. Catch me. Of course it didn't listen. That would have been too easy. It stood there for a second, then in return for being commanded, the beast bit me in half. Or it tried at least. The initial impact hurt and I screamed for sure, but I think not having a physical body let me survive this BS. It was phantom pain. I felt the teeth sink in my old wounds, opening each and every one up again. Like I was reliving them all. From Mom, Bakugo, Muscular, and Vene, the guy who killed me. But when the beast opened its mouth, all was good. Either that or I was actually hallucinating. Anyways, I commanded again. But this time I didn't talk to the Leviathan. I addressed the other shadows. Catch me. This time my old shadows came out of nowhere together with the dragon. The Leviathan saw them and tried to eat them all, but they attacked him in return. He won, obviously. Then he crunched down on me again, my wounds opening once more. Nonetheless, I called once more and new shadows followed, even a few of the new ones. And so we went on and on in this endless circle of pain. Each time the horde grew in size and started to weaken the MSTR of this domain. His wounds grew in number as mine just started to dull. And eventually, the Leviathan started to struggle. If I gave any command, he would freeze for a solid minute, and even if a dragon is 1/10 the size of this monster, it can do so much damage in a minute. When the Leviathan finally heeded my command, I woke up. Tsukachi POV. As soon as I got out of the hospital to interview the kid, I got a call from the forensics team about the attack. The man who we arrested was using the new drag that the doctor called Trigger, and then there was information about the BLD from most likely Kage. I had hoped that this was the first solid evidence we had on this guy, but to no avail. It was a completely new sample, not connected to any living person. Most likely his quirk altering it. Mutations are not so uncommon, but they make my job so much harder. Knowing how he could heal if in the dark should have eased my mind, but as I was driving home from the office, I felt like something was missing. Like something so normal wasn't there. Like a hole in my everyday. It was unnerving. But I checked. My phone, gun, wallet were there. All files safe, my home had everything. My car looked all fine. I was paranoid, so I went to bed and passed out from all the all-nighters I had pulled the few days prior. I woke up like any other morning. Brushed my teeth, ate a light breakfast, drank my third coffee of the day and headed out. I drove to my job and did the paperwork that was due. But the feeling didn't leave me. So I talked to the others. Turns out everyone feels the same. Now I was slightly panicking. What if the entire police force was affected by some mental quirk that makes us paranoid? We could be unstable and use excessive force as a response to the slightest movement. That would make us too dangerous for the streets. So, just to check, I asked the officers outside of our department who were still in the city. They too had some weird gut feeling. So quirk effect is unlikely. Hell, I asked 𝐀𝐿. And even he agrees, there is something weird going on. Must be the storm brewing. Dabi POV. The storm came. And when it arrived, it hit like a truck. I had talked to Kage about how something was stirring, and we both agreed that it could only be bad. So the moment shadows in the bar went silent, I knew something was up. Running out, I saw that the birds had vanished. The dogs what helped the old people had only left their gear, but they were gone. Now running, I looked around trying to find a single living shadow, but nothing. I arrived at the one place that was always full of darkness animals. The only place I knew was filled with his friends. So seeing it empty terrified me. The city felt empty without the nightmare's iconic allies. It meant one of two things. Either Kage was captured and his quirk deactivated, or the boy I saw as a brother of sorts was dead. Eraser POV. It has been about a week and a half since I saw 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, and I can't help but be worried. Of course, the staff told me that he does that. Disappear without warning. Courtesy of his parents. Apparently they spoil him with random surprise vacations and he doesn't know about them beforehand. Of course, as luck would have it, that is also the amount of time I have had a bad gut feeling. It also is how long the police haven't gotten a message from Nightmare. After the third day, the newbie gentle noticed that the shadow animals are gone. Like all of them. So either he deactivated his quirk or he is dead. After the fifth day, the criminals also noticed his disappearance. In just the first 24 hours of what we called the crime rush, my arrest number doubled. And it wasn't even all during the night. Like villains became more bold even during day. 𝐻𝐿𝐿 tried to call our friend, but we went radio silent. Not a single message. And it made me a bit worried. It has been almost a month since Kage disappeared. 𝐻𝐿𝐿 told me about his other name, so has 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. I'm not dumb, I connected the dots. A mute vigilante and a mute boy who looked the same height disappeared at the same time. Kage and Kage, the names are similar sounding. He most likely is Kage. I asked 𝐻𝐿𝐿 to search him up, and of course the kid doesn't exist. But at least we have a description. A kid roughly 12 years old with black hair, eyes, pale skin, skinny and mute. That was the vigilante that made plans to stop 𝐻𝐿𝐿, who stopped more villains than some pro-heroes including Muscular. The fact that he was only a kid was surprising for sure, but it made no difference to his strength except the fact he still had place to improve. I started reading the news daily to find any news about a kid gone missing or found dead that matched his description. It made me go insane. Knowing that a kid fought against some killers and villains gave me an idea. What if those who he stopped wanted to take revenge? I mean, we found out that Queen Bee was still alive, but we haven't found her since. And the raid was almost 5 months ago. Nether the doctor. If he got kidnapped and or killed, then I don't know how I will sleep at night. And I am already in despair. Beside that terrifying thought, I also met a new troublemaker the other day. He has so many purple scars, it is sickening. Like someone burned him alive. The new guy ran around town with his quirk on to get attention. When I finally arrived at scene, he handed me a notebook before running. The guy was quick and he knew of quite a lot of shortcuts, so I had a hard time catching up, and when we ran past an active crime scene I had to stop the chase to stop the robbery. The notebook had a lot of information about some low criminals and a few good leads on some larger time groups. It also had a short message about how he was Kage's friend before he went missing and fears he is dead. He calls himself 𝗧𝗓𝗧𝗟𝗘. As a info broker, he can help out stop the crimes. At least he doesn't go out to fight these guys. And honestly I am thankful for the help. Kage had such good influence to this world. Tsukachi POV. As the 3rd month of the storm passed, things went from bad to worse. Criminals teaming up, making new teams. More organizations acting bolder. And the new drag broke out. Trigger, as they call it, officially hit the markets. It made arresting criminals a whole lot harder. Then there were the disappearing people. First it was civilians, then distant relatives to heroes and officers. Then it was 2 cops and a ingenium sidekick. In short, Japan was having trouble. The only thing helping to keep appearances up was the top 10 heroes. They helped out with the bold criminals during the day and a few helped during the night. And of course the new guy 𝗧𝗓𝗧𝗟𝗘. He made some arrests easier. No matter, the Hero Commission says, Japan is becoming more dangerous by the day. The faux POV. It has been 3 months since I got rid of that pesky vigilante and my empire has been thriving. He might have wrecked my plans at the start because he knew too much, but my spies told me that the police force has not shared some of the information about the raid. So I used that knowledge to send a little surprise his way, and it worked. The human experiments helped develop Trigger outside of the Commission's view, and it was close to done before it was exposed. In the end, a simple thug I had someone hire managed to take down the famous nightmare with 1 dose and a relatively weak quirk. Ever since the animals vanished, the heroes and police have been running around like chicken without heads. They really relied on him. The regular weak villains re-entering the world of crime and me launching the drag gave us the advantage. So to grow the flame and keep the chaos going, I let some of my minions off the leash. These 7 are some of the oldest followers I have around the world. They all have just received message from me to come back to Japan and wreak havoc. They followed me before my supposed death, and each of them have patiently waited for my return. While I was gone, they each got themselves quite a reputation. If myth has ever come to life in the form of quirks, then they are some of the best living examples. They are the 7 deadly sins incarnate. It is weird how much they resemble a particular sin, but they live up to the title. RD Person POV. In the slums of Cuba there is a club. And in that club sits a man who is enjoying a long conversation with his drag dealer. The man is wearing a white suit, purple mask and neon purple sunglasses. Even though it is dark, he is inside and it is 3 a.m. Even though it makes him look weird, no one bats an eye. His red hair sticks out like a sore thumb. His pale skin is covered in golden tattoos and his arms look like he dipped them in gold. Even though his aesthetic doesn't match with the gold on his body, no one says a single word. The last guy who said something got to see his golden eyes and afterwards was smelted down and made into the man's jewelry. That is the power of his quirk, golden gaze. No living being has been looked at by him without turning into a golden statue. Well, almost no one. The only person who has earned the man's respect is also the only person who let the man look at him without fear even though he knew of the man's quirk. That person was also the one to teach him to use this power as a sort of mentor figure. Because his mentor had a quirk that stopped the transformation into a gold statue, they managed to find out the conditions for golden gaze. From then on, the man of greed swore loyalty to his teacher and 𝗧𝗓𝗧𝗟𝗘. He was making a deal with his dealer for another large shipment of drags before he received a message on his phone. But not just any phone, his personal phone. So he looked at it. The message came from a number that he instantly recognized. The private number of his MC, all for one. It is time, mammon. With that message received, the man now known as Mammon takes off his glasses and proceeds to turn every patron of the club into a golden statue. He then walks out and books a flight to Japan. Izuku POV. I finally managed to get out of the void and I woke up in the same alley where I died. Looking around, I noticed something weird. A puddle of my BLD has already dried, but my body isn't there. The dark seemed to have swallowed all that was still inside and on my body, leaving only the stuff that was lost in the progress of my death. Now it is midday. Like last time, I plan to move around to find a reflective surface. I end up just looking at the ground a couple meters in front of me. There is a puddle just like everywhere else. Must have been quite the rainy night. Looking down, I see my vigilante outfit not changed, but I seem to look older. Maybe 14 or so. This freaked me out. If I spent 1.5 years in the void, then Dabi might kill me. And Tsukachi. And Mr. Aizawa will have made the connection and he might kill me as well. And Gentle. Demon, I have a lot of people to worry. I feel kinda bad. I look even paler than before, which seemed impossible. Furthermore, I look like I haven't met a bed or futon in my entire life. The eye bags must be some kind of record-winning ones. Not wanting to walk in the light of day, I opened a manhole and went into the sewers to wait out the day. As soon as I was ready, I tried to use my quirk. At first nothing happened, then shadows similar to the ones of the void walked out of the darkness. They seem to have evolved and now look like the new friends I made. Larger dogs, cats, and about every medium-sized mammal just showed up. It was appealing. And it seems I too evolved. From 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐵 to insomniac 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐵. It is like I got a second type. I look more dead than alive at this point. No pulse, no melatonin, no life in the eyes, and allergic to the sun. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised if walking into a church would kill me on the spot beyond return. I might have to hide in the sewers during Christmas. So the upgrade in animals is cool and all, but I can also make my weapons feel easier. I had to concentrate on creating something before, but now it is as simple as imagination. Like a black lantern, but I am not a zombie and my shadows are not made of flesh either. Plus, I don't want to kill everything living. After waiting till the small sliver of light through the manhole cover turned dark, I entered the world of the living once more. The first thing I did was let out as many animals I could. They ran, flew, and used the dark to travel to every dark corner of the city. Within the first 10 seconds of me doing so, they found a robbery at gunpoint, so my birds snatched the gun out of the villain's hand before I teleported in front of him. One thing I noticed was different from my last life death. It was that it felt like I melted into the dark to only pop back up at the new location. Before, it was more like vanishing and reappearing. The new way doesn't seem slower, but it gives away my location. I guess not every change can be an upgrade. Anyways, the guy was weak as hell and I knocked him out with one punch. Then I turned to the man he was about to rob and planned to pull out my notebook of type on my phone, but both were missing. Great, I guess that was a sacrifice to the darkness. Then I looked at the man who I saved and he had already pulled out his phone, ready to call the cops, so I used my chains to tie the knocked man out and left to the next crime scene. A group of 3 were at a watch shop about to break in. They had plain medical masks and I noticed 2 of the guy's quirks. One had ears that looked like a bat's ears and another guy had a second face on the back of his head. They stood guard as the third took out some things out of his backpack. To dislocate the guards, I sent my eagles to take pot shots at them with their claws. The moment the guy with the bat ear heard them, he called out to his buddies something and the third guy turned around and started muttering. Then several darts shot out the tips of his fingers straight at my shadows, killing them all. Doing so, they were distracted, so they didn't notice me teleporting next to the third guy till the second face of the second 𝐶𝐵R saw me. As planned, the man screamed, but by then I had already used my quirk to bind the guy and shut his mouth as an extra precaution. The other 2 barely put up a fight as they seemed more terrified than anything. Probably because I had vanished for God knows how long. I was going to check the date, but another one of my animals told me about some drag dealer only a few hundred meters away. I tied up these guys and threw a nut at the smallest window of the shop to activate the alarm and dipped. The drag dealer had a simple quirk I now had to beat. His hair changed length and was quite durable. He blocked my attacks by blocking them with his head. Then the guy pulled out a needle and proceeded to inject himself before I could stop him. His eyes became bloodshot and his moves became faster. Then his hair grew a lot. All of his body hair. It looked like the injection powered his attack, and it took me by surprise, but the guy was still easy to beat. I just tied him up with more layers of chains. And so my night continued with way too many additional confrontations. By the time I finally got back to the empty school I call home, it was close to morning. Walking inside felt off. Like someone was watching me. My eyesight helped to see in the dark perfectly, yet there was no one. Out of nowhere I heard something crash, and the moment I turned around there were blue flames surrounding me. I felt my powers drain as the fire was way too bright. Then Dabs ran through the wall of fire at me and bloody socked me in the face. I fell to the ground still in shock when jumped on my chest, pinning my hands with his knees and just started to beat the SHT out of me. He literally delivered punch after punch after punch straight at my face until I heard a crack. My nose was broken. But he kept punching me, eventually lodging several of my teeth out and busting my lip. I even felt several small trickles from above my eyes going down. I started seeing black dots in my vision. I tried to talk, but the BLD in my mouth made it impossible. As well as the fact I couldn't talk. Though I did start to see how tears went down his face before he finally talked. "Where were you BSTRD? I thought that my brother had died, yet turns out you just took a 3-month-long vacation or something. You didn't respond to my texts, and I found out that the detective guy you talked to found a lot of your BLD. Here I thought you died, but I suddenly get informed that your shadows just randomly started showing up all over town and you helped so many people. You know, I never stopped looking for you, but it was like you had vanished into thin air. I thought that one of the many new gangs took you." Now there was a waterfall coming from him. Only when I was nothing more than a broken mess, he finally stood up, turned his flames off, and let the dark heal me. After just laying on the ground for a solid minute, I picked myself up. I felt my nose heal, my wounds close, and my teeth regrow. After all of my head trauma was fixed, I walked to my room to get something to write with. W followed me with tears still in his eyes, and he was muttering about how I left him. Now here I sat with my computer turning on, thinking on how I will explain everything.